Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 711, 4 years 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Deep within the abyss, Qinming had long been trapped in isolation. To prevent his mind from becoming confined by his surroundings, he often spoke to himself, sharpening his will into a blade to strike down the golden figure. This allowed him to vent his pent-up frustration and eased his troubled heart. What kind of place is this, exactly? Qinming sat in quiet contemplation. Aside from his daily cultivation, he constantly pondered this question, knowing that only by understanding the nature of this place could he hope to escape. Was this abyss a physical realm or a spiritual realm? Qinming sensed that he was not truly far from the outside world. The question was, by what means could he shatter the barrier separating them? He racked his brains, desperate to find a way home. A hidden worry gnawed at him. If he died, so be it, but he feared the golden figure would be ruthless and unscrupulous, seizing his body to wreak havoc. If an eight-realm being were to possess his physical form and walk the world with his face, wouldn't his acquaintances and old friends be in grave danger? If such a being were to infiltrate a supreme Dao lineage, he would truly be a catastrophic menace. Whenever this possibility crossed his mind, a shadow would fall over his heart, and his frustration would surge. It shouldn't come to that, he reasoned. He despises cultivators of lower realms. He wouldn't dare set foot in the supreme realms. Places like Tushita Palace and the Xuanhuan Dao lineage, with their ancient legacies, must have had countermeasures against such risks. Otherwise, they would have long since ceased to exist. So much time had passed, whatever was meant to happen had already happened. Even if Qinming worried, it was useless. He sighed and muttered, could I have already been reduced to bones and dust? Given the other's temperament, he was certain his own fate would have been grim. His only hope lay with tattered cloth. Within its internal space, a portion of his blood essence was stored. Once he reached the Grandmaster realm, he could regenerate his severed limbs. He hoped to use a small amount of blood to reshape his body. The process would be excruciatingly difficult, but at least there was a glimmer of hope. The only variable was whether the tattered cloth had found a new owner, and truly run off with the loot. If that were the case, he would never find it again. Qinming called out, Dog Cloth, are you out there? If you hear me, come see me at once. The abyssal hell was deathly silent. He received no reply. At this point, Qinming abandoned all illusions. Now, he could only rely on himself. The esoteric path was quite mysterious. He had experienced divine manifestations several times. It seemed as if he and this place were merging into one, shaking the abyss and attempting to tear open a path to the outside world. Predecessors had once crawled out of hell, resurrecting upon their own corpses. Could the essence of this be? Qinming studied the true scripture, pondering various possibilities. He suspected the abyss was a place similar to a gate. Very few beings possess a gate within their bodies, which is linked to their physical form. Perhaps the current situation is similar. Could I actually be inside a flesh and blood abyss? His thoughts gradually expanded. The body of a living being held too many secrets, complex and immeasurable, like a vast and detailed cosmic deep space. It could nourish the spirit, and even after the soul light was extinguished, the body could potentially nurture consciousness once more, encompassing infinite possibilities. Previously, my understanding of hell and the 9 heavens was that they corresponded to the great heaven and earth of the outside world. Now, if I delve deeper into the microscopic realm, perhaps I will find a new answer. Qinming pondered that the so-called 9 heavens might be the physical 9 heavens. After traversing the path of the esoteric sect, he turned his attention back to contemplating the 9 heavens manual. If he understood it from a different perspective, he might be able to comprehend the ultimate secret within. Since it has different names like the 9 heavens, hell, and the abyss, they should be able to connect to one another. Not only that, but Qinming also referred to the true scriptures of different domains, the esoteric path, the immortal path, and the path of awakening, trying every means possible, hoping to return to the mortal world. There seems to be a change. He didn't know how many days had passed. His pure yang consciousness flashed violently as it sensed something. At the end of the darkness, a hazy cluster of fire seemed to be flickering. It looked like a bonfire deep in the heavy mist, distant and flickering. Is this guiding me? My consciousness wants to go there. In an instant, Qinming understood. That place might be the mortal world. His physical body was guiding his spirit, shining like a divine tower to light his way. My body is still there. He sprang to his feet and immediately charged forward. Yet, in a flash, the bonfire extinguished. I cannot rush this. I need to continue comprehending the true scripture and connect the abyss, the mortal world, and the 9 heavens. Qinming sat down cross-legged, his impatience gone. Now that he had seen a glimmer of hope, he felt confident. The word guiding reminded him of the guidance scripture he had obtained at the Bodhisattva Dao lineage while discussing the Dao with the saints of the Great Thunder Temple to save Xiaowu and Shangyiwu. When reciting this scripture in meditation, he would silently circulate its power, his body becoming like a Buddhist pagoda radiating light, seemingly able to guide beings lost in the deep night mist. Back then, Qinming had wondered, what is the purpose of this scripture? Who is it meant to guide? If all the monks of the Great Thunder Temple recited it in unison, an immeasurable light would surely soar into the sky, forming a boundless tower of Buddhist light that stood between heaven and earth. In my current state, can I recite the scripture to guide myself, empty hell, and step back into the mortal world? During this period, the golden figure frequently ventured out in secret, actively searching for and pinpointing a location to cast his line. Is it that hard to find? The young man asked. The golden figure replied, the prey is extremely cautious. But I can roughly guess the area where it appears. Then why aren't we fishing yet? The young man pressed. The golden figure shook his head. There's no rush. A treasure of creation must be nurtured to maturity. If the time isn't right, it won't be fragrant enough. Only when it resonates with heaven and earth, its Tao imprints fully intertwine, and the timing is ripe, will it be ready for harvest. The young man expressed concern. What if we let it ripen too much? What if we can't lure it out, or worse, it simply escapes? The golden figure remained calm. For this great creation medicine to undergo its final, violent metamorphosis, it will need at least another 10 years. We have plenty of time. Of course, he wouldn't wait until the very last moment, that would be too late. For him, waiting another 3 or 4 years would be ideal. He added, based on my calculations, its divine pupa state isn't fully formed yet. The Tao resonance it has absorbed, and the Tao imprints it has woven are still insufficient. It's far from emerging as a butterfly. The young man asked, can't we just cast a heavenly net and surround it directly? The golden figure replied in a deep voice, it will be difficult. We must lure it out first. Otherwise, if we alert our prey and it flees, we'll never catch it. The young man stated, success is the only option. Failure is not permitted, or the consequences will be severe. The golden figure nodded. Given the young man's temperament, he would either do nothing at all or go all the way to ensure the prey was successfully lured and slain. At that moment, the left cheek of his majestic face trembled slightly, and a single tear of blood streamed down. The right side remained unchanged, still utterly cold and indifferent. The young man frowned and asked, back then, you left a part of this body's personality to conceal yourself. Could that lead to any hidden dangers? The golden figure shook his head. Keeping a part of his personality was essential. With his identity, I can move about freely without anyone noticing. In fact, when I hypnotize myself and fully immerse myself in the role, even I need a couple of days to recover afterward. He warned, it's not exactly a hidden danger, but I occasionally lose my focus for a moment. Therefore, do not become too deeply involved with this body of yours. Know when to stop. The young man said, if the fishing is successful and we obtain the creation, you should arrange the follow-up as soon as possible. Either transfer the cultivation to me, or quickly sever that part of the personality. Time flew by. A year had passed since Qinming's incident, when he was ambushed and killed on the path. During this period, the golden figure had ventured out repeatedly, but he kept a low profile and left no traces in the night world. He had finally identified 4 fishing spots. The people from Tushita Palace have entered Night Prefecture again. In an unknown realm, both the golden figure and the young man frowned upon receiving the news. The storm had already subsided, so why were the people from the Supreme Dao lineage still refusing to let it go? At this time last year, Li Qingyu had come to Night Prefecture. A year later, she arrived once more. She wasn't alone. Zhang Ran and 5 of the 6 great sages also traveled to Night Prefecture. So this is Old Sixth's hometown. He hid it so well, even his sworn brotherhood name was fake. Zhou Tian thought to himself. He had once lamented with a heavy heart over his 6th brother's untimely death. However, after learning his true name and where he actually came from, Zhou Tian felt a sudden urge to give Old Sixth a good thrashing. Taiyi remained silent, making no effort to reveal his own past. Heaven is jealous of the talented. Meng Jiu gazed into the night, lost in thought. Mu Xinian, clad in white, said gravely, they must have known Old Sixth was a rogue cultivator. That person had been targeting him for a long time. It's just as my sister-in-law Qingyu said, it's highly likely that a local was the perpetrator. Niu Wuwei's expression turned grim. Can we really not dig up the murderer? Taiyi's brow furrowed deeply. He had also come from this place. The legend of the silver eyeball had existed for thousands of years, had that guy still not died. However, it seemed there was another culprit in this matter. A year passed, and Li Qingyu had lost a significant amount of weight. She had already entered the inverted Tushita Palace, returning was no easy feat. Zhang Ran stood beside her, her eyes flashing like lightning, ready to tear through the void of Night Prefecture, wishing she could drag the murderer out immediately. Behind this group, naturally, followed some terrifying ancient monsters. Last time, a quasi-heavenly god had actually gone to the outskirts of Tushita Palace to intercept and kill Li Qingyu, infuriating the higher-ups. This was also the primary reason Li Qingyu could still bring people to Night Prefecture this time. For this reason, Taoist Master Guanshu had come again. Unfortunately, they were destined to come to no avail. In the end, after Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran bid farewell to their family, they arrived quietly and departed silently. Time flew by. 2 years had already passed since Qinming's incident. Li Qingyu and Zhang Ran returned once more, accompanied by Xiaowu and Shang Yiwu. Damn it, heaven, do you even have eyes? Shang Yiwu's massive frame, wider than a door panel, trembled slightly. He clenched his fists, each larger than a serving bowl. My brother's life was already so bitter. He never met his biological parents, and his only blood relative, his grandpa, is gone. He fought his way out of a desperate situation to become a great sage, yet you took him from us so soon. Brother Ming, how could you leave us like this? Xiaowu's eyes were red, clearly having cried more than once. He and Qin Ming shared a profound bond. In the past, it was Qin Ming who had led him out of the Forbidden Zone, introduced him to the mortal world, and braved the perilous Night Mist world by his side. They had endured countless hardships together, forging a brotherhood in blood and life. Qin Ming, I won't be able to return next year, Li Qingyu murmured softly. Once a disciple entered the inverted Tushita Palace at the edge of the heavens, they were not permitted to leave easily, let alone descend to the mortal realm as frequently as she had. If nothing unexpected happens, Li Qingyu whispered, I won't be able to return for a very long time, many years. She did everything in her power to lure the ruthless killer out to continue its hunt. Just as she had summoned 5 of the 6 great sages the previous year, she and Zhang Ran had personally come again this year. Wu Yaozu and Shang Yiwu, who had been in secluded cultivation for years, cut off from the outside world, had immediately grown anxious upon hearing the news. They had contacted Li Qingyu and were now on their way back. Zhang Ran asked with concern, Qingyu, you've descended to the ground and returned to Night Prefecture so frequently. Are you violating the rules of Tushita Palace? Will you be punished? Li Qingyu shook her head, remaining silent. In truth, Zhang Ran was already a great sage and was about to enter the inverted Xuanhuan Dao lineage herself. She knew a fair amount about those rules. Next time, don't come back, Li Qingyu said, looking at Zhang Ran, Xiao Wu, and Shang Yiwu. She feared that if otherworldly forces figured out the pattern and tried to fish in troubled waters, they might do something drastic. Over 2 years, Li Qingyu had returned 3 times. Her heart was heavy with endless regret. She knew that the longer the time passed, the slimmer Qin Ming's chances of survival became. Outside, everyone who heard of this matter unanimously agreed that great sage Zhengguang could not possibly be alive, having perished prematurely on his path to ascension. Such was the cruelty of the Night Mist world. Even a young great sage who astonished the world would be nothing more than a handful of yellow earth if he failed to fully mature. Zhang Ran clenched her fists, unleashing the control of myriad things in a desperate wish to overturn the very earth of Night Prefecture. The group departed silently, vanishing into the night. 3 years passed, and Li Qingyu never appeared, for she could no longer return. Following her instructions, the others ceased their arduous journeys and instead entered secluded cultivation, striving to grow stronger. Brother Ming, my sworn brother for life. When I rise to power, I will avenge you. Good brother, we now cultivate bitterly at the Great Thunder Temple. One day, we will fight our way back and find the murderer. This year, Zhang Ran, possessing the potential of a great sage, successfully passed the trial of the Dao lineage that hung inverted in the night sky, ascending to the heavens in a display of overwhelming power. During these 3 years, news of Zhengguang's death and the dissipation of his Dao had spread far and wide across the Night Mist world, no longer a secret. His fall sent shockwaves through the realm. The demise of the youngest great sage left many in disbelief and mourning. Of course, others, like Duan Yin and Xu Yuan, felt a sense of grim satisfaction. Outside, the world was in turmoil, but the chaos was too far from Night Prefecture to reach them. Even when rumors surfaced, no one would have guessed that the figure who died young was actually Qin Ming, a man who had emerged from Night Prefecture. With the various races speaking different languages, the name, Zhengguang, was interpreted differently across the lands. For instance, some translated it as, the radiant envoy of justice, while others called him, Liang, the scorching sun. In the unknown realm, the golden figure spoke. This is already the 3rd year. No one else has returned to Night Prefecture to investigate. This matter ends here. It was somewhat beyond his expectations that Qin Ming, a mere rogue cultivator, could stir up such a massive commotion. He was glad he had acted early. Otherwise, the impact would have been far greater had the prey formed deeper ties with the major Dao lineages. The young man asked, "Is the time almost right?" The golden figure replied, "Yes. According to my calculations, the divine pupa is gradually maturing, but it's best to nurture it for another year. Great medicine of the 8th realm cannot grow naturally in this world's current environment, yet we are fortunate enough to harvest it now." As he spoke, a faint smile appeared on his majestic face, filled with anticipation. He looked at Qin Ming, who was bound to a bronze pillar, and said, "Extract all the blood medicine essence from his body as quickly as possible. If you use his physical body for cultivation, be cautious, do not let him disintegrate." The young man nodded. "Yes, I know. Before the divine pupa entered the abyss, it left a wisp of its imprint within him. I will not disturb it. If something were to happen to the divine pupa, the imprint it left behind would serve as a backup. Once this fragrant bait had fully matured, it could guide the lost divine pupa back to the mortal world. Within a certain range, the two would share a faint connection." The golden figure declared, "In the coming year, absolutely no accidents are permitted to occur." Time had lost all meaning for Qin Ming. He no longer knew how much time had passed in the outside world. As he delved deeper into the path of enlightenment and continuously pondered the scriptural meaning, he would often enter a state of deep meditation for dozens of days, or even months, at a time. "Is this the physical 9 heavens?" he murmured, gazing ahead. Amidst the hazy night, he stood atop the sea of clouds and mist, looking out at the vast, boundless sky. He had tried to plunge toward the great earth and had even attempted to fly beyond the heavens, but each time, he was always drawn back to this spot. Therefore, Qin Ming surmised that this was not the 9 heavens corresponding to the reality world, but rather his own, physical 9 heavens. He had a hunch that once he became powerful enough, this so-called physical 9 heavens could be opened up and transformed into a grotto heaven. "I finally escaped hell, only to end up in another place." During this time, he had already sensed the mortal world. He could even vaguely see a campfire flickering. His physical body must be guiding his spirit. The time to break free is approaching. The closer he got to this moment, the more cautious Qin Ming became. His body had apparently been preserved, which was unexpected. This also meant there might be a grave danger waiting outside. Why would the golden figure keep his body? There had to be a reason. "If I fight my way out, my consciousness will revive within my body. Wouldn't that be walking straight into a trap?" Therefore, the closer he came to successfully returning to the mortal world, the more solemn Qin Ming's expression became. He dared not act rashly, choosing instead to wait patiently for an opportunity. These 3 years had been truly arduous for him. Cultivating and comprehending laws in abyssal hell naturally drained his pure yang consciousness, yet the spiritual essence of heaven and earth here was so sparse that it was difficult to replenish what he needed. During this time, he would occasionally revert to the state of the turbid world green lotus, a state of near death, neither born nor destroyed, using it to recuperate. But this so-called state of being neither born nor destroyed was only relative. He discovered that after 3 years, without any external mystical substances to supplement him, he still grew weaker even in the green lotus state. Eventually, Qin Ming focused solely on comprehending the true scriptures, rarely expending mystical substances to cultivate his techniques. Otherwise, he feared he would not survive until he could escape. Of course, he did not only study the esoteric path and the 9 heavens manual, his studies spanned all aspects of cultivation. Otherwise, he would never have come so close to breaking free. "I underestimated Old Lu's black and white scripture. Using it to unify the hell chapter and the 9 heavens chapter, dividing yin and yang, was what allowed me to take that step and escape from hell." With a single thought, Qin Ming withdrew from the 9 heavens back into hell. The next moment, he once again broke free from the abyss and ascended above the 9 heavens. "My mortal body can now be located using hell and the 9 heavens." Relatively speaking, the 9 heavens contained more divine materials and were less barren, which helped Qin Ming out of his immediate predicament. As time passed, his connection to his mortal body grew clearer. Qin Ming felt that if he unleashed his full power, he could likely tear through hell or the 9 heavens and return his consciousness to his body. But he dared not do so, fearing he would be caught like a turtle in a jar. "I must cultivate harder for a while longer, striving to return silently and break free from this predicament." The only condition was that the golden figure was not guarding his body. Otherwise, no matter how careful he was, something would go wrong. Several months passed. Qin Ming discovered that the flame trying to guide his pure yang consciousness back was flickering, as if under heavy attack. In a momentary flash, he even glimpsed a body covered in cracks. Damn it! 2 more months went by. He found himself drawing closer to the mortal world. Once, he even caught a fleeting glimpse of someone possessing his body with a portion of their soul light. In the blur, Qinming saw his own true body, now white-haired. He suppressed the boiling light of the spirit and retreated back into hell to calm himself. That was the golden figure's lair. If he charged out now, it would be pure suicide. At this moment, within the divine hall, the young man untied Qinming from the bronze pillar. He then possessed the ownerless body with a portion of his soul light, using it to fight against his own true body. He had ceased collecting blood medicine, for the so-called blood essence had nearly run dry. Qinming's true body was a shadow of its former self. His skin was dull, and his once black hair had turned completely white. He exuded an aura of profound desolation, looking like a 50-year-old man despite being only in his 20s. This was the result of his primordial essence being completely drained after his blood essence was harvested. The young man remarked, "The last of the longevity traits has vanished. Time is running out. At this final moment, I might as well put this waste to some use." Facing such a sparring partner, he had to hold back his strength. After all, this was merely a crippled body, and he feared accidentally destroying it. This body is surprisingly durable for one devoid of divine substance and covered in cracks. How interesting. However, the young man dared not unleash his full power. The only remaining purpose of this crippled body was to serve as fragrant bait. He couldn't risk an accident due to his own recklessness. "You bastard, just you wait." Qinming sat cross-legged within hell, forcing himself to stay calm. He was like an ancient ferocious beast lying in wait, biding his time to break through the barriers and escape. Time flowed by. 4 years had passed since Qinming's great calamity. In the divine hall within the unknown realm, the golden figure rose to his full height, his expression grave. "The time is right," he declared. "It's time to go fish for the 8-realm great medicine." Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 712, Fishing for the 8-realm divine pupa, 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. In the unknown realm, within a grand divine hall, a young man revealed his pearly white teeth in a brilliant smile. "I truly can't wait," he said. He and the golden figure were 2 sides of the same coin, and all of the figure's cultivation was about to be transferred into his body. He was the one who would ultimately reap the benefits of this scheme to lure and slay the 8th realm divine pupa. Qinming was bound to a bronze pillar, his eyes tightly shut. Wrinkles had formed at the corners of his eyes, and his face was marred with faint cracks. His white hair was like withered grass, devoid of any luster. Compared to a few months ago, his condition had deteriorated further. The young man had repeatedly harvested from him, draining him to the dregs without regard for the exhaustion of his primordial essence. Now, the blood within Qinming's body was dull and lifeless, no longer as vibrant and glowing as it once was, nor did it carry that distinct, refreshing fragrance. His body was filled with various medicinal toxins, primarily caused by the excessive consumption of blood-replenishing medicines. Over the past 4 years, he had become a veritable blood cow, forced to consume vast quantities of low-grade medicinal herbs, which had severely damaged his body. The golden figure spoke, "Make the most of every resource." He began to cast a technique, filling the entire hall with Tao imprints. He intended to sever all karmic ties accumulated over the past 4 years and completely break every connection to Qinming's physical body. Then, the thick bronze pillar binding Qinming began to sink. With a low rumble, it descended into the pitch-black depths of the earth. This was an underground palace, a place of gloom and darkness, shrouded in dense deathly aura and black mist. A high platform stood in the center of the chamber, upon which rested a single skull. Below it, 9 earthenware jars were arranged, each sealed with a mysterious talisman. These were relics of an unknown era, the skull and jars alike long buried under a thick layer of dust. Awaken. The skull on the platform floated into the air. As its jaw moved, a faint ripple of consciousness emanated from it. Crack. One of the dusty jars shattered into pieces. From its wreckage emerged a divine crystal, sealing within it a wisp of ethereal blue soul light. The high-grade divine crystal then shattered, and the ethereal blue soul light soared out, coalescing into a human form. It knelt before the skull on the platform and bowed deeply. "Lord." A faint light flickered in the skull's eye sockets. "You have decayed severely, falling from immortal to mortal. You cannot even maintain the ancestral level realm anymore. Time is a blade, and I am soon to return to dust," the ethereal blue soul light replied. Prostrate on the ground, he murmured, "I wonder if I can still serve you in my final moments." The spiritual light in the skull's eye sockets shimmered. "You can. There is a task for you to complete." With that, a mysterious imprint formed between the skull's brows, sending out ripples as it transmitted a divine decree to the ethereal blue soul light through a secret technique. Moments later, the ethereal blue soul light rose and drifted toward the bronze pillar that had descended into the underground palace. It merged into Qin Ming's body, and his eyes slowly opened. The skull's jaw moved as it spoke. There is a mysterious imprint within your body. If it begins to glow with heat and resonates with the outside world, I will appear at your side immediately. It then bestowed an exotic treasure, a palm-sized bronze gate. The skull instructed, activate this gate when the time comes. Even if I am hundreds of thousands of miles away, I can descend to your side in an instant. In truth, the bronze gate required no deliberate activation. Whenever the imprint left by the divine pupa within Qin Ming's physical body began to glow with heat, the palm-sized bronze gate would awaken on its own. Next, the skull offered several talismans. Some could conceal the ethereal blue soul light's own aura, while others could help him channel heavenly light. Additionally, there was a talisman imbued with the dense Tao resonance of Night Prefecture, which could help him avoid many troubles. The skull said, "Get used to this body. We will be setting out soon." Above ground, within the Grand Temple, the golden figure spoke, "The arrangements are complete. Even if an accident occurs, we can distance ourselves from the fallout. Using Qin Ming's physical body as fragrant bait naturally carried risks. If discovered, it would surely cause an uproar." The golden figure sighed, "Old friend, you have been dead for many years, yet I must still borrow your skull. I truly apologize." The young man merely smiled faintly and replied, "Isn't this what old friends are for? The original owner of that skull had long been dead." The young man spoke, "The primary fishing spot is quite remote and desolate. It's unlikely outsiders will notice the fragrant bait." The golden figure replied, "It doesn't matter. Even if word leaks out, they won't be able to trace it back to us. Besides, even if the news reaches Tushita Palace, Xuanhuan Dao lineage, and other such places, it would take a peerless expert several months to travel here and back. Such a time gap would be more than enough for him to angle for his prey." The young man asked, "Are the old bones of Night Prefecture and those in the 9 heavens truly determined to ascend to the heavens?" The golden figure nodded. "Yes. The Jade Capital is likely to fully revive. The Dao ranking is currently summoning all factions to discuss the great matter." After a brief pause, he added, "Moreover, the various factions in Night Prefecture have no idea that Qin Ming has met with disaster. News of his death hasn't leaked locally. In truth, a long-planned, murderous, fishing expedition wouldn't take months. Normally, a few days would suffice to visit several fishing spots." The next day, in the gloomy underground palace, the skull's eye sockets glowed. "I will send you out." Instantly, the void cracked open. Qin Ming's physical body vanished into it, leaving the unknown realm and reappearing in the sky above an incredibly desolate region. For hundreds of thousands of miles in every direction, there was no sign of human life. The region was surrounded by eternal darkness. Without the fire springs, not a single blade of grass could grow. "Lord, I shall go." The ethereal blue light in Qin Ming's eyes faded away. His long, snow-white hair flowed freely as he vanished into the night. After he departed, the skull spontaneously combusted, turning to ash that scattered in the wind, erasing all traces of its existence. Next, all that remained was to wait for the imprint within Qin Ming's body to heat up, establishing a connection with the divine pupa. Then, the golden figure would arrive in person to suppress and slay the prey. In this barren land, even a bloody battle would leave the outside world completely unaware. The angler would finish his task and brush his clothes clean, not leaving a single ripple behind. In the divine hall of the unknown realm, the golden figure and the young man were discussing the first fishing spot. The best place for the divine pupa to undergo its transformation is that abyss. In ancient times, several supreme Dao lineages collided and fell from the heavens in a catastrophic descent, leaving behind a colossal crater that formed a terrifying abyss, a place where the strongest divine being can be forged. Unquestionably, the divine pupa they spoke of was actually an 8-realm being awaiting transformation. By referring to it as it, they had already designated it as great medicine. The terrifying abyss was vast and boundless, located far from Night Prefecture. The surroundings were pitch black, with light emanating only from the bottom of the abyss. There, fire springs bubbled, flowing with liquids of all colors, yet they added no divine aura to the place, only heightening its eerie atmosphere. Within the abyss, even the void was shattered, covered in cracks. From time to time, a yin wind would blow, blood rain would fall, and even tombstones would plummet down, while human skulls cascaded like waterfalls. In the night mist world, many forbidden zones were connected to the night void. High-level forbidden zones were rooted in the night void, which was why the terrifying miraculous scenes they projected into the mortal world were impossible to eradicate. As for this place, it was more than just rooted, it was directly connected to the night void. Furthermore, it wasn't connected to the lower levels of the night void, at the very least, it was linked to the 20th level or above. In ancient times, the great battles of the ancient supreme Dao lineages were also connected to the high-level domains of the Night Void. This terrain was exceptionally unique. It not only contained the Dao resonance left behind by several ancient supreme Dao lineages but was also merging with the Night Void, allowing various strange powers to pour in from the other shore. If someone were to enter seclusion here and successfully undergo a transformation, they could indeed establish an unparalleled divine foundation. In the unknown realm, within the divine hall, a young man said in a deep voice, outside Night Prefecture, this place was struck out during the ancient era, creating such a terrifying abyss. It can truly be called an endless battleground. Qin true body appeared at the edge of the abyss. He lingered there for a long time, using a divine talisman for protection as he wandered, offering himself as bait to lure out a divine pupa. At this moment, Qin pure yang consciousness sat cross-legged in hell, trying to calm himself. Over the past 2 months, he had cautiously observed and sensed that bonfire several times, witnessing his own true body's condition more than once. Even though he was separated from the mortal world, a rage that could set the 9 heavens ablaze surged within him. That young man truly did not treat him as a human being. He had directly torn open Qin heart to extract his blood essence and even used him as a sparring partner, brutally beating his already withered and exhausted body. One could only imagine the suffering he had endured over the past few years. Though he had not died, his true body was in a semi-crippled state. In particular, there was one time when Qin circulated the guidance scripture and drew infinitely close to the mortal world. He witnessed his true body being pummeled like a sandbag, sent flying into the air. With a resounding thud, at the very last moment, he saw a foot kick him squarely in the face. His body flew backward, slammed into the wall of the divine hall, and slowly slid to the ground. At that moment, Qin pure yang consciousness nearly boiled over, as if it could feel the excruciating pain of his physical body and the inexhaustible humiliation it had suffered. The fury in his heart was about to explode. You bastard, just you wait. I won't let myself get angry now, I'll focus on my cultivation, he tried to soothe himself. But moments later, he couldn't hold back any longer. His rage surged like a tidal wave, and he ascended from hell, breaking through to the 9 heavens. He moved to a different earth realm, circulated the guidance scripture, and once again drew close to the mortal world. The golden figure is gone. Qin was tempted to return immediately and crush that young man. He gazed silently from afar, his eyes fixed on the flickering flame in the mortal world that guided his way. Seeing his own blood-streaked, crack-covered body, the killing intent in his heart refused to fade. He looked truly miserable, his hair white, his origin depleted. It was exactly the same plight Lu Zizai had faced years ago. The two of them, one had his gate pried open and the secret treasure behind it stolen, while the other had his physical body drained dry. Both had prematurely aged. Qin was weighing whether he could immediately break through the barrier, return his consciousness to his body, and blast that young man to death. Though the impulse grew stronger, he ultimately restrained himself. Who knew if the golden figure had truly departed? If it were to return suddenly, he would be doomed. Moreover, as he observed from the shadows, his heart sank further. My physical body is on the verge of collapse, so I cannot rely on it to fight. And my pure yang consciousness, severed from the world for years, is no longer at its peak. This was the cold reality. Both his form and spirit required extraordinary medicine herbs to recover. Restoring his condition was the priority, it was unwise to engage in a blood battle immediately. That young man might already be an ancestor, Qin gaze deepened. In his weakened state, returning rashly would only be delivering himself to the slaughter, a futile death. Qin lay low, waiting for the optimal moment. What are they trying to lure? He recalled the young man speaking of, making use of waste, intending to use him as bait to fish for the divine pupa. The young man is nowhere to be seen, and my physical body is no longer in the divine hall. Have they already taken action to lure their prey? My time to return to the mortal world is approaching. When Qin once again circulated the guidance scripture and gazed upon the mortal world, he noticed an anomaly. The world before his eyes was now pitch black, its entire environment completely transformed. There is a wisp of soul light inside my physical body. Qin expression darkened as he kept a close watch. In just a few short years, he had fallen from the heights of the clouds to the depths of the abyss, suffering endless torment. It was hard to imagine the sheer amount of humiliation he had endured. Qin pure yang consciousness gradually regained its composure. He silently gazed at the blurred night scene in the mortal world, waiting for the right time and place to seize his opportunity. Outside Night Prefecture, in a marshland shrouded in dense fog, Taoist Master Guanshu of Tushita Palace was cultivating his breathing, a trace of blood staining the corner of his mouth. No one knew he was still near the borders of Night Prefecture. It was obvious he had returned for Li Qingyu's sake, seeking to hunt the murderer. His status was exceedingly high, hailing from the inverted Tushita Palace. To request his presence in the outer domain once or twice was one thing, but to have him set foot in the Jade Capital realm several times, and this time, to have him lie in wait in secret for nearly a year, was truly inconceivable. Tushita Palace was home to some very old-fashioned Taoists who adhered strictly to rules and rarely made exceptions for anyone. No one knew what Li Qingyu had discussed in secret with the higher-ups to repeatedly persuade such a figure to enter Night Prefecture. 2 months ago, Taoist Master Guanshu had compiled various clues and tracked the murderer, actually making some headway. He had been moving silently through Night Prefecture, constantly searching in secret, and unexpectedly discovered traces of the silver eyeball. However, he soon realized that he hadn't found the other party, rather, the silver eyeball had been actively waiting for him. The old Taoist carried various great killer weapons, runes imprinted by the supreme treasure Vajra bracelet, a brilliant beam of light from the law-breaking mirror, the sword intent of the seven-star sword. All these powers were materialized on powerful talismans. Once he activated them externally, their destructive force would be boundless. Yet, on that day, Taoist Master Guanshu still suffered a bitter defeat. If he had not had a substitute puppet, and if he hadn't used the Vajra ring to protect his body and the void-escaping talisman to flee at the last moment, he might have perished in that tribulation. Is it truly this powerful? Back then, he had used various heavenly materials and earthly treasures to refine this incarnation, making it almost identical to his true body. Now, after 2 months of recuperation, the incarnation's injuries had still not healed. After the great battle, the old Taoist's heart remained unsettled. He was profoundly shocked. The silver eyeball had always existed only in legends, yet now it had actually manifested in reality, and he had been the one to encounter it. In truth, he had not come for the silver eyeball. His primary target was the person behind the quasi-heavenly god who had ambushed Li Qingyu last time. The inverted Tushita Palace was unfathomably deep. A terrifying ancient monster had once personally performed a ritual there, ultimately pointing the clues toward the vicinity of Night Prefecture. When Taoist Master Guanshu arrived in person, he gained no significant findings, yet he himself had nearly suffered a fatal blow that would have extinguished his Tao. This debt is noted. After I have healed, I will settle the score. In truth, the silver eyeball had been far too active. Its prey, once marked by its spiritual eye, had been snatched by someone else, infuriating it. Qin Ming. I had heard of him, but before I could even approach, he met with disaster. It seethed with indignation. Someone had dared to steal food from its very jaws. It was tempted to manifest its true body and drag that golden figure out of hiding. Even more regrettable was the fact that Li Qingyu's body contained a gate, an opportunity it had completely missed. Ancient and immensely powerful, the silver eyeball knew all too well that there was no comparison in danger between a rogue cultivator and a disciple of a supreme Tao lineage. Some red lines were simply not meant to be crossed. Li Qingyu already bore the mark of Tushita Palace. Though the being behind the silver eyeball coveted her, it would not strike again. It sighed. The years were long and arduous, finding a permanent place in the mortal realm was truly difficult. All things have a lifespan. This lifetime will not be crossed. Moreover, it had long since harbored thoughts of retreat. The era of the Jade Capital's entanglement with the great being had ended, and this place was no longer suitable for seclusion. I will search one last time before I leave. It remained deeply dissatisfied with the golden figure. The other had intercepted its longevity-extending treasure. If they ever met, it would make that person pay dearly. Qin Ming's true body wandered before the boundless abyss for 2 days, but the mysterious imprint within him remained dormant, showing no reaction. Qin Ming had refrained from taking any rash action. He had been absent for several years, and though he had glimpsed the mortal world from afar, his information was still too scarce. He needed to learn more. In the short term, I will kill the young man. As for the golden figure, one day I will personally crush him. Even before returning, Qin Ming had already conceived a murderous intent. He vowed that unless he slew those 2 beings, his humiliation would never be cleansed, and the raging fury in his heart would not subside by even a single shred. That same day, the blue soul light merged with Qin Ming's true body. With the aid of a divine talisman, he departed this place and hurried to the next fishing spot. Inside the divine hall, the young man frowned. The divine pupa isn't in that abyss. Could it have chosen another fishing spot for its nirvana? The golden figure pondered. If I were in his position, I would have chosen this place. He then added in a deep voice, the divine pupa must have stayed in that abyss for a time before leaving. Most likely, it intends to seize the divine essence from several special locations. The young man said, this 8th realm ancient medicine has quite the ambition. The golden figure spoke, how could an ordinary being reach such heights? If the divine pupa hadn't taken the wrong path initially, it wouldn't have faced these tribulations. This ancient medicine spirit is indeed formidable, it dares to retrace its own steps to reshape its true body. Now, it has likely already achieved a dual cultivation path of both immortal and god. Yet, in the end, it is all in vain, it is destined to become nothing more than medicine. The second fishing spot was a desert, so vast and desolate that one couldn't see their own hand in front of their face. Qinming's true body lingered here for 2 days, yet still found nothing. The prey still hasn't made a move. In the divine hall, the golden figure's brow was deeply furrowed. The bronze gate he had sent out could locate Qinming's true body. Because he held the other bronze gate in his hand, he could strike immediately if necessary. The young man's smile vanished, his voice low. In the ancient era, a supreme strongest once lay dormant in that desert for years, secretly nursing his wounds. Does he not even find such a place worthy of his notice? They had already cast their lines in 2 different earth realms, yet the divine pupa's whereabouts remained unknown. The golden figure spoke in a deep voice, there's no need to rush. I've studied the divine pupa's history. Of all the earth realms this 8th realm ancient medicine has ever set foot in, there are only 4 most suitable for its transformation. Its trail is still fresh. However, after visiting all 4 fishing spots, the divine pupa still failed to appear. Within Qinming's true body, the ethereal blue soul light shimmered. Does that mean the mission has failed? Days passed, and they had visited every possible location, but the imprint within Qinming's flesh and blood remained unresponsive. Just then, the palm-sized bronze gate on his body glowed, sending out ripples of Tao resonance. A blurred figure stepped out. Tell me the details. The rippling light adhered to Qinming's physical body, probing the ethereal blue soul light's experiences over the past few days. Actually, there is one last place. Go there, the divine pupa should be there. This time, do not be in a hurry to leave. Wait until the prey appears. The ripples burned away and vanished back into the bronze gate. After a long period of observation, Qinming had already concluded that the blue soul light was decaying, its cultivation far inferior to that of the ancestor. Is it trying to disguise itself? To make its cultivation appear similar to mine when I was alive. Qinming grew bolder, drawing infinitely closer to the mortal world. If he truly wished to break through the barrier, he could do so in an instant. Instead, he approached the mortal world stealthily, like the silent rain nourishing things. Soon, Qinming reaped a startling reward, he could faintly resonate with the thoughts of the ethereal blue soul light. This was precisely what he needed. Having been gone for several years, he knew nothing of the current situation and had hesitated to begin his journey back. Now, through this resonance, the mists of uncertainty would be swept away. He was about to return. What's this? As his pure yang consciousness neared the mortal world, guided by the flame, he saw not only his own physical body but also the clear scenery nearby. To his surprise, the black and white twin trees were swaying before him. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 713, Emerging Together 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The black and white twin trees swayed in the night breeze, their leaves rustling as they touched. At their roots, the fire spring glowed crimson, casting a soft light into the darkness. Familiar scenery, the place he had once lived, and the very spot where his cultivation journey had begun. Qinming stood there, lost in thought. He had actually returned to Twin Tree Village. Could it be that an old acquaintance is behind this? Qinming's pure yang consciousness flared, his eyes turning deep and somber. Years ago, he had departed from this place to enter the night mist world. After he had carved out a formidable reputation and become the youngest great sage, he was suddenly ambushed by the golden figure. After all the twists and turns, he had been brought back to where it all started. In an instant, killing intent surged in his heart. He now understood that the golden figure and the young man were trying to fish for Lumo. Previously, he could only gaze at the mortal world from afar, catching only a few vague words like divine pupa and great medicine. The information had been too sparse. Now, however, he understood everything completely. Qinming had wondered before, could the divine pupa be related to the undying butterfly, or perhaps the ancient cicada from the legends of Kunling? They actually want to eat old Lu. Bastards. He had to disrupt this scheme, he couldn't just stand by and let old Lu get into trouble. The ethereal blue soul light possessed Qinming's physical body, making him appear completely normal. As he approached the village entrance, he carefully reviewed the information his lord had transmitted to him. Just then, the ripples on the bronze gate on his person shimmered, and a bracelet was teleported over. He quickly understood the bracelet's purpose. It contained spiritual medicines, exotic treasures, and other items, gifts he could give to Wen Rui, Wen Wei, and the others upon their reunion, all fitting for Qinming's status. Just then, Fire Spring gradually brightened as shallow night descended. Red Squirrel, Speaking Sparrow, and Wen Rui were practicing diligently, having already made their way to the village entrance. Huh, old sir, who are you looking for? Wen Wei arrived as well, trailing behind them. He immediately spotted the white-haired figure standing in the darkness. Speaking Sparrow even added a literary touch, leaving home young, returning old. But soon, its eyes widened in shock. It let out a strange squawk, flapping its wings wildly, nearly falling to the ground. Wen Rui had already frozen in place. He finally found his voice, gasping, "Uncle." He couldn't believe his eyes. Was this the same person from his memories? Back then, Qinming had been full of spirit and youthful vigor, a man of unparalleled grace and talent. But now, the man before him had hair as white as snow, wrinkles etched around his eyes, and deep, crisscrossing scars that had completely disfigured his face. Mountain Lord. Speaking Sparrow flew over at lightning speed, circling Qinming in a panic. The usually silver-tongued bird was now utterly flustered. Tears welled in Wen Rui's eyes. He rushed forward, grabbing Qinming's arm, refusing to believe what he saw. It's only been 5 years. What on earth happened to Uncle? Why has he become so weathered? His condition is terrible. Something awful must have happened to him. Big brother Qin, what happened to you? The three-headed, six-armed red squirrel rushed forward, his voice laced with anxiety. Is this the same Emperor Qin who once reigned unrivaled over Night Prefecture's younger generation? How did he fall to such a state? Uncle. Wen Wei also called out weakly, terrified by Qinming's appearance. 5 years had passed, and he had grown into a young man. The uncle in his memories was a figure of heroic vigor, not this broken man. He didn't know what had happened. Uncle, what did you go through? Why do you look like this? Wen Rui wept. He and Qinming shared a profound bond. Years ago, Wen Rui had been kidnapped and forced to cultivate the technique of the giant spirit god, groomed to become a mindless Li Shi. It was Qinming who had searched for him and rescued him. Afterward, Qinming had taken him as his disciple, shattering his giant spirit god bones to reshape his body. He had bestowed upon him a primordial chaos seed and taught him various true scriptures and mystical techniques. This was his uncle, and his master. The ethereal blue soul light spoke. Good children, don't cry. There is no need to panic. Sigh, life has its ups and downs, this is all that it is. It is quite normal. Qinming's pure yang consciousness watched all this from the abyss. At this moment, he couldn't bring himself to reprimand the soul light within his physical body. After all, the being was trying to comfort the children. He felt the need to hurry. He couldn't allow the golden figure to threaten old Lu. Calculating carefully, Lu Mo's transformation should have entered a critical stage. As he reshaped his bones, flesh, and blood to become a divine embryo, he was like a great medicine undergoing nirvana for any 8th realm hunter. Uncle, I'll help you home to recover, Wen Rui said, wiping away his tears. For him, Qinming had clearly undergone a drastic change, and the fact that he had returned alive was all he could ask for. Many thoughts raced through his mind. 4 years ago, Li Qingyu had returned to Night Prefecture and gone straight to Twin Tree Village, appearing burdened with worry. Perhaps that was when Uncle had met with this accident. The speaking sparrow said, Mountain Lord, you will get better. You'll be back to your peak strength in no time. The foul-tempered red squirrel also nodded in agreement. That's right. Big brother Qin is walking the path of awakening. After a period of secluded cultivation, you'll definitely undergo a complete transformation and recover to your peak state. The real Qinming felt a warm glow in his heart. The ethereal blue soul light nodded and said, I will try to recover my body. Early in the morning, they stood at the village entrance, quickly drawing the attention of other villagers. Xiao Qin. Yang Yongqing exclaimed in astonishment. Behind him, a black mountain goat, over a person's height, poked its head out from a courtyard gate and widened its eyes. Child, what happened to you? The divine matriarch, who lived at the village entrance, pushed open her door and walked out. In the unknown realm, within the divine hall, a young man frowned. This is the last fishing spot. Will the divine pupa appear? More importantly, the fragrant bait is now completely exposed in Night Prefecture. It's a remote place, but I expect it will cause a stir soon. The golden figure set down his teacup. No matter. A few days' time is all we need. This is a deliberate attempt to flush out the snake. If the divine pupa doesn't emerge, we will go to its lair. I suspect it's in that region. The moment the ancient medicine sprouted, the imprint within Qinming's body would surely react. That would be the moment for the hunt, a gluttonous feast for the two in the divine hall. The golden figure paused slightly. If fate is against us and he refuses to take the bait, then I will tear it apart for him to see. The worst-case scenario was coming away empty-handed. After all, he had nothing to lose. In Twin Tree Village, many villagers were drawn out by the commotion. They gathered around Qin Ming, struggling to believe that he had aged prematurely and suffered such a terrible fate. Mountain Lord. The Thunder King bird soared back from the depths of Black-White Mountain. Shao Qin. Lu Zi and his wife, Liang Wanqing, their eyes rimmed with red, helped him back into their home, unable to accept this reality. The couple felt an immense debt of gratitude toward Qin Ming. It was his gift of a spiritual object that had granted Lu Zi awakening more than once, and he had even personally intervened to change Wen Rui's destiny. The ethereal blue soul light spoke, "Brother Lu, sister-in-law, I'm all right." After some rest, there might be a turning point. The real Qin Ming's heart sank. The impostor knew him too well, even aware of his relationship with the villagers. This all but confirmed that the culprit was likely an acquaintance. Even if the culprit wasn't a native of Night Prefecture, they were almost certainly an ancient monster from the Jade Capital realm. Several faces immediately flashed through his mind, weighing heavily upon him. If Lu Mo were to die, he, the bait, would lose his reason for existing, and his physical body would be impossible to preserve. Qin Ming's inner turmoil surged. He had to stop this from happening. Damn it all. I'll kill you 100 times over. He seethed with hatred for the golden figure and the young man. He now knew that he had been isolated from the world for 4 years. His cultivation had been neglected, his prime years wasted, leaving him to wither away prematurely. You ambushed me back then just to bait the heaven fishing god. Your greed knew no bounds. That evening, Qin Ming returned to his small courtyard. Wen Rui had been tending it all this time, so it wasn't covered in fallen leaves and thick dust. Instead, it was clean and ready for him to move back in. His nerves had been on edge all day. He had kept a constant watch over his physical body in the mortal world, staring at the ethereal blue soul light, terrified that the imprint within him would suddenly activate and bring disaster upon Lu Mo. If anything had gone wrong, he would have fought his way out immediately, halted the attack, and warned old Lu to flee. Wen Rui brewed tea for Qin Ming, bustling about as he recounted the events of the past few years. The impostor Qin Ming, the ethereal blue soul light, listened quietly. The real Qin Ming, however, was deeply moved. Li Qingyu had returned for 3 consecutive years. She must have been searching for him. Zhang Ran had also come, and she seemed to be accompanied by a master. Had they also guessed that a local was responsible? And his brothers, Xiao Wu, Shangyi Wu, Niu Wuwei, Zhou Tian, and the rest, had all visited before. The real Qin Ming found it hard to calm his racing heart. Sitting in hell, he gazed up at the mortal world, desperate to break out and return to his true body. He restrained his impulse, forcing himself to quiet his mind and strive for resonance. He sought to uncover more secrets through the ethereal blue soul light's thoughts. He has a palm-sized bronze gate on him that can summon a golden figure. If only tattered cloth were here, I could directly seize the ethereal blue soul light in the bronze gate, which would at least provide some temporary relief from this suffocatingly tense situation. Qin Ming felt a cataclysmic storm could erupt at any moment. Anything involving a being from the 8th realm was never a minor matter. Divine child Lu Bai left 5 or 6 years ago, personally escorted away by the dog sword immortal. No one knows where he went, but he hasn't been in the Black-White Mountain region for a long time. That evening, Qin Ming's heart stirred when he heard Wen Rui mention this. In other words, after he had left Night Prefecture back then, Lu Bai had vanished almost immediately after him. This. Qin Ming froze. Had Heavenly God Lu foreseen this? Was he guarding against it? If so, the suffocating tension in Qin Ming's chest eased slightly. Still, the situation remained dire. A single misstep would lead to an 8-realm blood battle. Old Lu was still in the midst of his transformation and would stand no chance. If he were found, he would almost certainly die in battle. Could Lu Bai be old Lu himself? As he pieced everything together, this possibility struck him. Lu Mo and his wife were in their 70s. How could they have fathered a young son? Even if old Lu were capable, his wife might not have been. Qin Ming suspected that Lu Bai was born from old Lu himself, the divine embryo of his nirvana. He recalled old Lu's words, reconstructing his true self would invite heavenly tribulations. Perhaps, as folk legends suggested, there were critical thresholds at ages 73 and 84. Lu Mo had once joked that his ideal state would be to reach the 95 mark, achieving complete perfection. He had already endured the tribulation at 73. Calculating the years, he seemed to be approaching 84 right now. Qin Ming pondered, I need to return to the mortal world as soon as possible to help old Lu. I must find a way to send a message to the outside world and ask for experts to come and capture the culprit. Strange, Wen Rui said, puzzled. I sent a message to Uncle Meng, but why hasn't he arrived yet? Meng Xinghai cared for Qin Ming more than anyone. If he knew Qin Ming had returned, he would have rushed over immediately. As night fell, the speaking sparrow flew back, still trembling with fear. It flapped its small wings and reported, "The little brother I sent out to deliver the message exploded in the distant sky for some unknown reason." It was absolutely terrifying, not a single bone remained, only a mist of blood. His companion behind him was nearly scared to death. The ethereal blue soul light spoke, "When Rui, stop sending messengers. I returned in secret, and it might be dangerous." The real Qinming felt his heart sink. Is this place going to become an isolated island? In the end, would the entire region be erased by the eight-realm being? Given that being's ruthless and cruel nature, it was absolutely capable of such an act. Throughout the night, Qinming focused on achieving resonance, trying to thoroughly understand the ethereal blue soul light and uncover all its secrets so he could take its place. He had to seize the initiative as quickly as possible. Otherwise, many people would die, meeting a tragic end. For the past few days, the silver eyeball had been on the move, acting with unusual vigor, as its true body prepared to depart. "Before I leave, I hope to have gained something." It had silently visited the esoteric sect's strongholds and the major ancestral courts of the Path of Awakening, all without causing the slightest disturbance. Alas, those with the gate are ultimately a rare find, impossible to seek out. That night, it entered the beyond the mortal realm. In the distance, it saw Cao Qianzhou, who had already returned to the ancestor realm. A ripple of emotion stirred in its silver pupil. A Xuanhuan. It stared from afar for a long time but did not strike, silently drifting away. Late into the night, Cao Qianzhou's hair stood on end. He slowly turned his head, his expression grave. After appearing in various places, the silver eyeball arrived near Black White Mountain the next day. Sensing something, it silently flew forward. In an instant, it tore through a faint ripple, exposing the secluded realm hidden within. Someone is blocking the path here. What's the situation? It thought of the young man named Qinming, who seemed to have walked out from this very place. With a flash of silver light, it appeared in Twin Tree Village. He is still alive. He actually survived. The silver eyeball was profoundly shocked, immediately scanning the situation within the village. Qinming was in the middle of resonating with the ethereal blue soul light. Suddenly, he felt a wave of terror from the other, sending a chill down his spine as if he had been plunged into an ice cellar. Through the other's fear-stricken emotional vision, he saw a pair of silver eyeballs descend from the night veil, appearing inside the room. In an instant, Qinming closed his eyes within the abyssal hell, severing his connection to the outside world and ceasing his observation of the mortal world. His heart jolted violently, as if a hurricane had swept through, tearing the great earth apart and unleashing a towering tsunami. Talk about adding insult to injury, he thought. His situation was already dire, yet he had just encountered an even more ruthless being. He was no stranger to the silver eyeball. Back then, he had gone to the place where Lu Zizai met his end to resonate and attempt a retrospective trace, personally witnessing the remnants it had left behind. He had even used the tattered cloth to collect the silver pupil of Dao Rime it had discarded. Qinming knew all too well that this monster was unfathomable, likely far more terrifying than the golden figure. If the great environment of heaven and earth hadn't undergone such a drastic change, severely restricting the power of experts, this monster would be far more terrifying than it is now. This era, with its violently surging Dao resonance, is the perfect time to capture and destroy it. If I could call a group of old bones, we might be able to completely eradicate this great menace from the world. Unfortunately, Qinming could only indulge in such thoughts. He was currently struggling to survive, trapped in a perilous situation. Besides, the monster was after him, how could he possibly call for help or set a trap? This great menace had descended with only a pair of silver eyeballs, its physical form nowhere to be seen. Yet, it had instantly frozen the pure yang consciousness of the fake Qinming. The blue soul light, which had taken human form, was now completely paralyzed. It stood frozen in place, unable to think or even maintain a ripple of thought, like a living corpse. Hunting the divine pupa, angling for 8th realm ancient medicine. Interesting. This truly exceeds my expectations. The silver eyeball emitted faint ripples, causing the room's temperature to plummet as a faint killing intent filled the air. At this moment, it had been drawn in by the plan. There are many restrictions within the soul light. Forcing a probe would cause it to explode. In the end, he tasted the power superficially, choosing not to delve deeper. It also placed several restrictions on the ethereal blue soul light, crude yet efficient, to control its consciousness. If you discover anything, notify me as well as the one behind the bronze gate. This seat will enter the fray, wipe them all out, and even take the very land they stand on. It spoke coldly, leaving a divine talisman for the ethereal blue soul light. Then, it entered Qinming's physical body and explored it thoroughly. To my surprise, it said, "There is no gate." After a full investigation, it said in a deep voice, "How ruthless. To cripple a young great sage with the potential for ultimate strength. What a waste." It did not linger. In the blink of an eye, it vanished, leaving the black-white mountain region and disappearing into the depths of the distant night. Born from the Hunter Gate, ruthless and decisive, somehow like me. Yet, this seed utterly detests such similar successors. That golden figure. He must have accumulated the mysterious substance from behind the gate, mustn't he? These were the final words it left echoing above the 9 heavens before fading away. Several hours passed before Qin Ming could once again gaze upon his own body in the mortal world, staring at the flames that guided his way. He tried to draw closer. After a long time, he re-established resonance with the ethereal blue soul light and confirmed that the silver eyeball had long since departed. Soon, he learned what had happened. The ethereal blue soul light's thoughts were a tangled mess. He was under double control, serving 2 great experts simultaneously. He could neither betray them nor destroy himself, his divine soul had been locked. It's a mess, Qin Ming's heart refused to settle. With ancient monsters entering the fray, the situation is growing more complex and dangerous. This has spiraled out of control. If the master behind the silver eyeball were to descend upon them suddenly, they would need a coalition of the strongest experts to hunt it down together. Otherwise, it would be too difficult to handle. This colossal beast was even more formidable than the golden figure. At the same time, a chill of dread crept over him. What if I had entered the mortal world earlier, replaced the ethereal blue soul light, and returned to my physical body? Wouldn't I have been in grave danger just now? Being a rogue cultivator was truly too difficult. Survival was a constant struggle. Even on a night that seemed so ordinary, a life-threatening accident could strike without warning. The shallow night was drawing to a close, and Fire Spring's activity was waning. Wen Rui mentioned some recent events in Night Prefecture. A grand assembly seemed to be taking place in heaven, and the Jade Capital was on the verge of revival. The strongest experts were gathering to discuss the future. Hearing this, the real Qin Ming fell silent. Nothing could be worse. With the great experts gone, the rear would be completely empty. Wouldn't the golden figure and the silver eyeball be able to roam freely, as if entering an uninhabited land? He had been hoping to contact experts from the outside world, only to find that the nearest ones had all ascended to heaven. This is just like Night Prefecture, Qin Ming sighed. Always unreliable when it matters most. You all really dropped the ball. He narrowed his eyes, pondering for a moment. Heaven never closes all doors, but what if? He frowned, lost in thought. Qin Ming spat out a mouthful of turbid air in the abyssal hell. Relying on others is never as good as relying on oneself. He would harbor no illusions and simply face the situation with the utmost seriousness, assuming the worst-case scenario had already occurred. As dusk fell, the fire spring began to dim. Qin Ming rose and headed out of the village. Wen Rui quickly followed, asking, "Uncle, where are you going?" Qin Ming replied, "Staying home for so long has made me feel stifled. I'm going to take a look at Black White Mountain. Don't worry, though my body has developed problems, I can still defend myself." Wen Rui, Speaking Sparrow, Red Squirrel, and Thunder King Bird immediately followed, all of them visibly anxious, worried that his body wouldn't hold up. The true Qin Ming, however, felt his heart grow heavier. The ethereal blue soul light began to actively explore, clearly intending to quickly establish a mutual resonance between the Mark and Lumo. Night Prefecture is empty, with no decent experts to guard it. We are both wanted men, yet Lumo's life is much more comfortable than mine. Calculating the time, he must be at the critical stage of his nirvana, right? If I can find him, he will be a supreme nourishment. In a distant land, a being let out a hoarse voice. Yu Heng, you can't hold back anymore. Mo Yuan, you are also filled with longing and hope, aren't you? Without a doubt, all beings who knew of Lumo already knew that he had entered his weak period and reached a critical juncture. The best time to harvest this 8-realm divine medicine had arrived. One could say that all sorts of demons, ghosts, and monsters were becoming restless. At the edge of the Black-White Mountain region, Qin Ming's physical body walked silently, his eyes staring faintly at the vast mountains. In the abyssal hell, Qin Ming rose to his full height, Dao imprints intertwining around his body as he radiated a murderous aura. He took one step after another toward the mortal world, almost completely entering it now. At this point, he had already touched his own physical body. Suddenly, he felt a faint, almost imperceptible sensation. He sensed the tattered cloth in its semi-detached state. It has already left my physical body, but it seems it hasn't gone far. If that was the case, Qin Ming felt he could adopt a different strategy upon returning to the real world. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 714, Returning to the Mortal World. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The night mist gradually thickened, and the vast black-white mountain was swallowed by darkness, leaving one unable to see even their own outstretched hand. Standing at a distance, Wen Rui reminded in a low voice, "Uncle, it's getting late. We should head back." The evening breeze brought the damp vapor of the distant sea. It was the rainy season, barring any unforeseen circumstances, a torrential downpour tonight was inevitable and imminent. Crack! A bolt of fiery red lightning tore through the pitch-black sky. Even amidst the towering mountains, one could feel the terrifying might of the heavens. Wen Rui's hair actually began to float, as if entangled by some strange lightning charge, a sure sign of an impending lightning strike. "The heavens want to smite us." The speaking sparrow shrieked, its feathers bristling. Wen Rui and the red squirrel quickly bent over and lowered their heads, their experience in such matters was quite extensive. The ethereal blue soul light stared in astonishment. He discovered that this ruined body was actually generating wisps of mystical power, which had begun to circulate on its own. He naturally knew the previous owner of this body, the youngest great sage of the current era. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been targeted by an ancient expert and reduced to supplementary material. Yet, he never expected the man to be so defiant of heaven. Was this a sign of revival? This person's primordial essence was clearly drained dry, and he had completely lost all vitality. Moreover, 4 years have passed, how can a cultivation technique still be circulating within his flesh and blood? The ethereal blue soul light was stunned. His thoughts raced. Could this body, destined for destruction, bring hope of life extension to his own decaying form? He knew all too well that a physical body could nourish the soul. He recalled ancient legends of supreme experts whose bodies remained incorruptible long after death. A rare few even came back to life, nurturing a divine soul from within. Could this young great sage, 4 years after his death and the dissolution of his Tao, still be brought back? This is currently unclaimed territory, the ethereal blue soul light thought with growing excitement. If my soul light takes root in his flesh and blood first, perhaps I can live a whole new life. Yet, his expression remained calm, showing neither joy nor sorrow. Imitating Qin Ming's tone, he said, "You all go back first. I want to be alone for a while. Don't worry, even if my body has some issues, I am still far beyond your level." Another bolt of thunder fire tore through the pitch-black sky. This time, Qin Ming, standing on higher ground, felt a crimson flash of lightning graze his body, causing it to tremble violently. "Uncle! Mountain Lord!" Wen Rui, speaking sparrow, and the others nearby all cried out in alarm. The ethereal blue soul light clearly sensed a profound and complex cultivation technique within his body, beginning to accelerate. The mystical substances drifting between heaven and earth instantly surged into the body. The ethereal blue soul light was profoundly shaken. A corpse was reviving, a legend was reappearing. He mused inwardly that if this youngest great sage had not died, he would have truly become a supreme strongest in the future, rivaling the most brilliant figures of antiquity. He spoke in a deep voice, "Wen Rui, I am unharmed. You all must leave immediately. I will be in seclusion here. I have a sudden realization and might be able to use the thunder fire to refine my body and sever the death energy entwined within me." His tone grew stern as he spoke the last words. All right. Wen Rui knew his uncle's temperament. Once he made a decision, he would execute it swiftly and decisively, and it was hard to change his mind. He led the speaking sparrow, red squirrel, and thunder king bird out of the forest and back to Twin Tree Village. Did the thundercloud static lightning initially activate this body? The ethereal blue soul light wondered with anticipation. At the same time, he studied the cultivation technique that was operating on its own. In an instant, the heavenly light from the night sky poured down, flooding into his body through his pores. The ethereal blue soul light felt as if he were facing thunder fire and couldn't help but tremble. This is truly a supreme profound divine technique. Even without considering anything else, simply obtaining this cultivation technique would yield immense benefits. He realized deeply that this was absolutely an extraordinary true scripture. Soon, he discovered that various mystical substances were flowing in like endless threads, initially falling like a light drizzle. Later, purple chi, crimson clouds, and the vigorous green light of vegetation, all kinds of energy substances, converged from all directions in a massive torrent, pouring into this body like a torrential downpour. They entered through the pores, flooding backward through the acupoints to nourish this withered, crippled body. Even the real Qin Ming was stunned by this sight, staring fixedly at his true body in the mortal world. The silk book technique was operating on its own. He recalled the past, the president had said this was a cultivation technique for the dead. Was this further confirmation? After a moment, golden threads interlaced across Qin Ming's surface, and jade armor emerged, making him look as if he were wearing a jade burial suit. Then, his body became even more brilliant, as if countless golden needles were stitching through his flesh and blood, repairing his crippled body. Jade light rippled across him, as if applying medicine to soothe and nurture his form. The only thing that seemed out of place was the ethereal blue soul light. It did not merge with this system and was being scorched by the fierce thunder fire heavenly light, nearly bursting into flames. I've never cultivated this true scripture before. I can't get used to it yet. He detached himself, condensing into a human shape and floating to the side. He secretly observed the mysterious true scripture's cultivation path, memorizing it as his gaze grew increasingly fervent. But soon, his head throbbed with a massive ache. The technique was simply too complex. Hiss. The aura of awakening and the burgeoning vitality within the crippled body were being rekindled. If I can master this, will my decaying soul undergo nirvana and live another life? His heart stirred with restlessness, his eyes filled with longing. The ethereal blue soul light yearned. If survival were possible, who would willingly watch themselves wither and slowly fade away? Qin Ming acted, breaking through the barrier. His pure yang consciousness, now fused with the heavenly light and carrying the origin of the 10 sacred demonic essence, silently entered the mortal world, infusing his own flesh and blood strand by strand. Of course, he only introduced a minuscule amount for now. It appeared as if the physical body were naturally drawing in the essence qi from the four poles of heaven and earth, blending in perfectly. Qin Ming did not fear the ethereal blue soul light. Even if he were discovered, he could still kill the creature. The moment the heavenly light-fused consciousness returned to his body, Qin Ming felt a long-lost sense of intimacy. His consciousness was nourished, and the heavenly light returned to its mother body. Everything was so harmonious and perfect. Soon, he sensed an anomaly. The energy circulation of the silk book technique was altering the path of its own accord, diverging from how it had flowed in the past. This is a self-initiated, refined adjustment, Qin Ming thought, silently sensing the changes. Could the cultivation technique, designed for the dead, have improved because I survived a death tribulation? He found that the technique was becoming increasingly compatible with his physical body. There was no doubt, the scripture seemed to possess a spiritual sentience, having undergone a transformation by borrowing the power of the death tribulation. Qin Ming pondered. The silk book technique's spontaneous activation today was likely due to the heavenly light. The thunder and lightning that had struck his body seemed to have awakened some latent vitality. It seems some of those folk tales actually hold some truth. Does my current state count as a corpse reanimation? Old cats and lightning strikes were both said to be able to disturb a corpse, causing it to suddenly revive. Perhaps the revival of the ancient supreme experts' bodies was initially a matter of chance, Qin Ming mused for a long time. Finally, he snapped back to his senses. Now was not the time for such musings. Qin Ming's brow furrowed inwardly. This body was completely depleted. Ultimately, its physical form had been ravaged too severely by that young man. Qin Ming had initially thought the body was merely half crippled. Now that he had returned and discovered the truth, a frigid chill settled deep in his eyes. He wished he could flay that man alive. Unless he achieved a great nirvana of the entire domain, this body was as good as dead. Without any conscious effort, Qin Ming allowed the silk book technique to operate on its own. Soon, countless black vortices materialized across his skin, drawing in the essence of heaven and earth with even greater fury. My primordial essence is exhausted, and my vital energy has completely dissipated. How can I replenish them? Qin Ming merged his consciousness with the heavenly light, infusing it into his body strand by strand as he formally began his journey back. He was in no rush to deal with his opponent. The man's decaying soul had weakened so much that it couldn't even maintain the ancestral level, making it utterly defenseless against his killing moves. Upon returning to the mortal world, his first priority was to establish a connection with the semi-detached tattered cloth through resonance. After all, his entire fortune was stored within the old cloth's internal space. It contained his blood essence and a vast hoard of precious medicine from flying immortal mountain, all of which could replenish his body's deficiencies. Of course, Qin Ming felt that capturing the young man in the divine hall would be the best solution. He could then use the devouring force to reclaim his primordial essence and other stolen essences. In the void, the tattered cloth stirred back to life. In the unknown realm, within a magnificent divine hall, a golden figure and a young man were sipping tea, awaiting news from Blackwhite Mountain. Is it all going to fall apart? There's still no movement, the young man frowned. This time, their strategy relied on a time difference, prioritizing speed and efficiency. Otherwise, once the news leaked that Qin Ming was being used as bait, it would surely trigger a tsunami of chaos. The golden figure set down his teacup and said, "If we obtain it, it is our fortune, if we lose it, it is our fate." He sighed. After all, those who reach the 8th realm have all received heaven's favor, making their destinies incredibly resilient. It would be abnormal if we could immediately hook and kill him upon our descent. He then added, "However, I have glimpsed him in a trance, he is indeed at Blackwhite Mountain. This time, he should be unable to escape his fate." His light of the spirit burned pure and fierce, illuminating the future. He had a strong premonition that there was a 70% chance they would successfully harvest the great medicine this time. He whispered, "Of course, we must still be cautious. Even the slightest disturbance can fill the future with variables, making those subtle changes difficult to grasp." The young man spoke up, "This 8th realm ancient medicine is at its weakest. Surely it can't be that complicated, can it?" It wasn't that he was careless, the two were simply two sides of the same coin. His doubt was a form of self-examination, a way to search for gaps and oversights within his own heart. The golden figure nodded. "This man is indeed extraordinary." He seemed to be lost in thought as he said, "How did heavenly gods and heavenly immortals come to be? Normally, one must preserve their original body in the 7th realm to have a slim chance of breaking through. But this man changed his life form early on, yet he still managed to step into the 8th realm. It's simply a monumental feat." Lu Mo was a rogue cultivator from the ancient era who had charged ahead in his cultivation, essentially a wild talent. He had altered his life essence early on to step into the 7th realm. He had not maintained his human form, nor was he a 7 convergence realm. Eventually, he accumulated enough cultivation to become a top-tier Earth Immortal and was recruited by the Jade Capital. Both Earth Immortals and Earth Gods were publicly recognized as having exhausted their potential, their paths forward severed. Normally, they were considered devoid of any chance to reach the 8th realm. Therefore, after Lu Mo ascended to the heavens, he naturally received no special attention. He was just another ordinary immortal god, immediately dispatched to guard an ancient mine, isolated from the rest of the world. Without a doubt, even after ascending to the heavens, he found it impossible to connect with his peers. He remained an outsider, a rogue cultivator, because the divine mine area where he was stationed was too isolated for him to receive guidance from any great power. Under such circumstances, with the body of an Earth Immortal, he researched the paths of immortals and gods, expanded the black and white scripture, and forced his way into the 8th realm. He knew nothing of the 7 convergence realm, the inheritors of ancient wisdom, or any other paths that did not alter one's life form. He simply charged into the 8th realm by sheer force. Throughout the ages, those who stepped into the 8th realm as Earth Immortals or Earth Gods were not absolutely non-existent, but they had all but vanished. Even if such a person existed, they would have been someone with an immense background, granted creation materials by a supreme Tao lineage that could alter their fate, forcibly paving the way for them to break through the great bottleneck. That was a gift, a heavenly immortal or heavenly god artificially created by a supreme Tao lineage at a tremendous cost. But the resources consumed were simply too great. Cultivating an 8th realm expert in such a manner was completely counterproductive. For Lu Mo to research both the immortal and god paths with the body of an Earth Immortal, painstakingly master the black and white scripture, and ultimately force his way into the 8th realm to become a heavenly god, this was, naturally, a severe overstepping of all established norms. Thus, many years later, when he was summoned back to the Jade Capital, the higher-ups were stunned to learn of his condition. He was a mere rogue cultivator who had broken through to a higher realm without consuming any creation wonder fruit. The golden figure's thoughts churned as he reminisced. Back then, a highly esteemed ancient monster sought to study him. Lu Mo sensed danger and made his escape shortly after. The young man remarked, his true body was already fixed as an Earth Immortal, yet he still managed to ascend to the 8th realm. He is truly an anomalous one. The golden figure continued, after fleeing the Jade Capital, he acted with ruthless resolve. He flayed his own skin and carved out his own bones, reverting to his original true body to retrace his path from the very beginning. If he succeeds, his future achievements will be limitless. He knew all too well that since the divine pupa was reshaping its Tao foundation, it would naturally seek the strongest path. Lu Mo was not merely reverting to his origin to maintain his true body in the 7th realm. More than that, he intended to break into the 8th realm while maintaining the true body of an 8 convergence realm. If he achieved this, his cultivation would be terrifying. Once successful, he would far surpass his former self. The golden figure sighed. His comprehension and innate talent are truly exceptional. Otherwise, after taking the wrong path, he would never have been able to alter his own destiny. Precisely because of this, his eyes burned with desire as he gazed at the transforming Lu Mo. That was the perfect divine embryo of an 8 convergence realm, a treasure-grade tonic in the current environment. Devouring it would undoubtedly extend his lifespan and cause his cultivation to soar. The golden figure's voice turned grim. Most importantly, his reshaping of the Tao fruit is an extremely rare form of great nirvana. It will extend our lives by at least half a lifetime. The young man sighed. The more extraordinary he is, the more powerful the medicinal properties of the divine embryo he nurtures. I truly cannot wait any longer. For a divine pupa to break its cocoon and emerge as a butterfly, there must be peril, a terrifying death tribulation. The two exchanged a glance, knowing all too well that they were Lumo's death tribulation. Forgive us, the golden figure said coldly. Heaven and earth destroy those who do not seek their own benefit. The young man nodded, his voice devoid of emotion. It's simply a matter of making the best use of a resource. Just like Qin Ming. On Black White Mountain, Qin Ming's consciousness surged back into his physical body. After 4 years, he had finally returned to the mortal world. Old Cloth responded, drawing closer to him. Do you still recognize me? Qin Ming asked through resonance. In a rare instance, Old Cloth spoke aloud in reply, naturally. Then, it sent another ripple of thought, adding, those who keep me by their side for a decade can already become senior owners. Upon hearing this, Qin Ming was stunned at first, then felt a strong urge to smash it to pieces with a single punch. Was keeping it around for over 10 years really that difficult? One could only imagine how perilous it was to keep company with the tattered cloth. Have those who have dealt with you deeply all met with a bad end? Qin Ming had to consider the future, whether he should continue his journey with it. As for now, he had to retrieve his belongings first. Collect. Without hesitation, he struck. Having regained control of the tattered cloth, Qin Ming naturally resolved the immediate crisis and drew the ethereal blue soul light back inside. Furthermore, during this process, he used his pure yang consciousness to seal the opponent, rendering it unable to move an inch. The decayed soul, though seemingly at the great Grandmaster realm, was utterly outmatched by a great sage like Qin Ming. Next, Qin Ming reopened another tattered cloth cage and sent the bronze gate on his person into its deepest recesses. As for this cage, he hesitated slightly and left a sliver of a gap on the outside. If the golden figure truly descended abruptly, he wanted to see if he could capture it directly and imprison it within. He did the same with the divine talisman left by the silver eyeball. However, after just a moment, he shook his head and sighed. I can't be too aggressive and reckless. Relying only on myself, wielding a useless old cloth, I'm afraid I won't be able to do anything against an ancient monster of the 8th realm. Qin Ming knew he needed a window of time. He had to temporarily sever his connection with the golden figure and the silver eyeball and find Lumo as quickly as possible. At the same time, he wanted to restore his true body and personally seek revenge on that young man, vowing to beat him to a pulp 100 times over. Right now is a critical moment. The ancient monsters of the 8th realm are all fishing. My true body appearing in Black White Mountain would be extremely dangerous. I should create a body similar to the divine lotus body to act as my proxy in the outside world. Having suffered a devastating loss once already, Qin Ming refused to fall into the same trap twice. The sky was pitch black, with arcs of lightning occasionally streaking across it. He looked up. Could he achieve nirvana within the thunder fire and shape an incarnation? He had been isolated in hell for 4 years, and a fierce flame burned in his heart. Old cloth, let's talk, Qin Ming said abruptly. Now that he had become a senior owner of the tattered cloth, had his authority been upgraded? The exotic metal cloth replied calmly, what do you want to say? Normally, it would never initiate communication with a temporary owner. Now, however, it remained as still as a deep well. Seeing its composure, Qin Ming felt a surge of anger. He had narrowly escaped death, yet the cloth had almost run off with the loot. He blurted out, I'll give you a name first. Lu Bu, or Bu Ruyan. Pick one. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 715, Reaching a New Level. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The Tattered Cloth. It had been in Night Prefecture for a long time, so it naturally knew that wasn't a good name. I have a name, it replied calmly, its voice still devoid of any emotion. Qin Ming was taken aback. What is it? He was naturally interested, this was a clue to Old Cloth's past. A long time ago, some people called me, Yi. Facing Qin Ming, who had endured 10 years to become a senior owner, Old Cloth seemed to be speaking more than usual. In the past, it rarely communicated with anyone. Much less would it reveal its name or talk about its past. Qin Ming's expression darkened slightly. A single character name like that sounded like someone calling him, grandfather, or, lord. He felt that calling it Lu Bu or Bu Ruyan would be more appropriate. Considering its practicality, Qin Ming made a final decision. Forget it, let's change the name. I'll call you Lao Bu Old Cloth. Lao Bu Old Cloth. It didn't respond, remaining as aloof and indifferent as ever, almost to the point of having no presence. Crack. The night veil was torn apart as a blinding flash of lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating the oppressive mountain forest. A violent storm was about to arrive. The dark clouds pressed down on the mountain, descending so low they nearly touched the ground. The scenery above the mountainside vanished completely, and a damp night wind swept in. Boom. The earth shook, and the mountain trembled. A massive bolt of lightning struck not far from Qin Ming, causing a towering tree to explode into splinters. Sparks flew in all directions, and the air filled with the acrid scent of burning wood. Qin Ming's expression tightened. It seemed some extraordinary rule governed this world. The dead remained dead, adhering to the heavenly principles, unable to return to the mortal realm. To do so would surely draw the mysterious calamity tribulation chi. But I'm not dead, he muttered, looking up at the sky. His consciousness had merely sunk into the physical abyss, he had not truly perished. In response, an even thicker bolt of crimson lightning struck nearby, blindingly bright. The hillside was scorched black, and another massive tree exploded, turning to ash in the thunderfire. The thunderclap was deafening, leaving Qin Ming's ears ringing. Terrifying thunder fire materialized within his pure yang consciousness, threatening to ignite his very soul. This was no ordinary lightning strike. It was aimed directly at the light of his spirit. Heavens, are you blind? He roared. I'm not dead. Why are you striking me? Qin Ming's face darkened with indignation. Why did the heavens ignore the golden figure and the silver eyeball, such monstrous entities, only to punish a good person like him? Then, the third and fourth bolts of heavenly thunder struck. The surrounding ancient trees exploded one after another, and the thunderous booms were so immense they nearly deafened Qin Ming. However, he noticed that all the thunderlight struck the ground around him, never actually hitting his body. Qin Ming sighed. Heavens, are you hesitating too? Unsure if I am a ghost resurrection or simply someone who hasn't died. He focused his senses, trying to probe the essence of these heavenly principles. After 4 years, there's actually a trace of death energy within my body. Though his physical body had not decayed, a careful inspection revealed that his origin was exhausted, and a few wisps of black mist clung to it. No wonder the cultivation technique meant for the dead had automatically activated after the heavenly thunder struck. My pure yang consciousness is brimming with vitality, yet my physical body carries a few wisps of death energy. Between life and death, there is a great calamity, making it easy to attract the heaven and earth tribulation chi. Heavenly thunder, naturally, was the most infamous form of calamity chi. Even in the distant past, the heavenly tribulation was the harshest trial a cultivator had to face. Great cultivators fight against fate. Every breakthrough to a major realm is a gamble between life and death. To reap the Tao fruit and extend one's lifespan, one must endure the descent of calamity chi. All these problems stem from the struggle to defy death and seek life. The thunder fire ultimately did not strike Qin Ming, proving he was indeed not dead. Bean-sized raindrops fell, striking his cheeks with considerable force. A mortal would have felt a slight sting. A fierce storm raged, the mountain forest swaying violently. Leaves flew wildly, and branches snapped with sharp cracks. A rainy night is perfect for training. Qin Ming calmed his mind, preparing to reshape his physical body. Of course, he first had to wait for the silk book technique, which was circulating on its own, to completely stabilize. Thunderlight surged, illuminating the pitch-black mountainside. Raindrops pattered down like hailstones. Qin Ming remained motionless as lightning struck the ground around him. Because of this, the once pitch-black forest was suddenly lit up every few breaths. Finally, the silk book technique smoothed out. Qin Ming closed his eyes and focused for a long time. Then, he suddenly snapped them open, his gaze emitting a light even brighter than the lightning in the night sky. For the first time in 4 years, he was once again cultivating with his physical body. As his pure yang consciousness, which had merged with the heavenly light, sank into every inch of his flesh and blood, becoming one with it, he felt that every breath was incredibly soothing. It was like a fish in a dried-up riverbed welcoming the flood season. After being nourished by the water, its life was completely transformed, and it leapt up with overflowing joy. Qin Ming unified his form and spirit, drawing in the mystical substances between heaven and earth and accelerating the process. His body was like a desert greedily absorbing sweet rain, transforming from a barren land into a vibrant oasis. With every breath, his body underwent a change. Mainly because, after 4 years, he had already fallen to rock bottom. Even a slight breath of cultivation could bring about a turning point. As time passed, Qin Ming couldn't help but frown. There were many problems within his body. For example, his numb waist gradually began to feel threads of pain. How weak had his kidneys become? Next, his chest felt stuffy. Looking inward, Qin Ming discovered that his heart, which should have been a brilliant fiery red, no longer glowed. It was dull and covered with a crisscrossing web of cracks. His expression darkened instantly. He recalled how the young man, each time he came to extract the blood essence, would directly tear open his heart and catch the essence in a jade bowl. Over the years, even with his body's astonishing regenerative powers, he couldn't withstand such brutal abuse. Otherwise, with his potential as a great sage, how could his body, brimming with dense life force, have been ruined like this? Qin Ming opened the internal space of the old cloth and saw that the precious medicine harvested from Flying Immortal Mountain was still there. Without hesitation, he took out a crimson-red old ginseng root, gnawing on it as if it were a large radish. A rich medicinal fragrance immediately filled the air. Crimson radiance surged within his mouth, burning like brilliant flames. A fragrant stream of heat flowed into his abdomen and then rushed through his limbs and bones. His primordial essence chi was severely depleted, and he desperately needed such a potent supplement. The next instant, he pulled out a small, emerald green tree bearing 6 purple, translucent fruits. If not for the heavy rain masking their scent, they would have surely provoked a stampede of the mountain's beasts. Qinming devoured the fruits one by one, his mouth stained with purple juice as a purple haze enveloped his entire body. Chewing slowly and refining carefully. For Qinming, that was far too slow. He devoured the medicine like a whirlwind, drinking it down in great gulps. Each of the miracle medicines he took out would have incited the envy of Fifth Realm experts if they ever leaked to the outside world. Good steel should be used on the blade's edge, good medicine should naturally be used on a body with exhausted primordial essence. Otherwise, what was the point of keeping them? Originally, Qinming had saved these precious medicines to pave his path, allowing him to reach the perfect Grandmaster realm and approach the Ancestor realm. At this moment, Qinming's body was like the parched earth welcoming the rainy season. His flesh rapidly regained its luster, and his heart beat with growing strength, thumping powerfully. Even his failing kidneys and lungs, which still carried wisps of black mist, began to emit essence chi and gradually strengthen under the nourishment of the extraordinary medicine herbs. It's still not enough, the depletion of my body is far too severe. Qinming swallowed greedily, truly famished. Every cell in his body seemed to cheer, filled with longing as they continuously absorbed the spiritual essence of the potent medicine. An hour later, the cracks on his heart vanished, the pain ceased, and it began to glow brilliantly, shining like a crimson sun. Yet he knew all too well that he was still far from his former peak. After being crippled, his primordial essence had nearly withered away, how could it possibly recover so easily? On the surface, his various injuries seemed to be vanishing, but countless hidden ailments still festered within. Qinming discovered that he absorbed the medicinal properties of the herbs with astonishing speed. Having been isolated from the outside world for 4 years, his body was like a parched desert, absorbing everything without exception. There was one exception, however, low-grade blood replenishing medicine. He had been force-fed so much of it over the past 4 years that a massive amount of medicinal poison had accumulated in his body. None of the herbs of collected or low-grade, he thought. Because of this, he didn't even need to be selective, he could simply stuff them into his mouth. I still feel like I can't eat enough. This weakness won't fade, Qinming sighed. To reverse his decline and fully revitalize his crippled body, he needed a powerful medicine. Without hesitation, he took out a great medicine he had treasured for years. It was a mass of liquid sealed within a spiritual crystal, about the size of a baby's fist. Divine radiance shone from it in 5 flowing colors, blending together as if to form a hazy miniature world. It was a divine medicine capable of extending one's life by half a lifetime. Back then, while in Night Prefecture, Qinming had explored the otherworld through the ancient mist gate left by Jade Capital. He had taken the incarnation of Yuan Dingming, discovered a field of black wheat, and entered the underworld from there. He had sailed across the blood-colored sea, witnessed a bound divine being entangled in karma, and seen things related to the 5 elements. At the time, he had suspected he was seeing the 5 viscera of a terrifying being. In the end, only he and an old mountain goat had escaped alive, each obtaining a divine medicine capable of extending one's life by half a lifetime. He had never brought himself to use it, but today, he finally took it out. I wonder how Xuanhuan, Haibai, and Liwa are doing. Qinming murmured to himself, thinking of the little cats. After harvesting the divine medicine there, he had said he would go back to see them, teach Xuanhuan, Liwa, and the others the scripture, and give them some spiritual objects, but he had never managed to make the trip. I didn't even use this medicine when facing the true form tribulation of the 5th realm. I never thought I'd need it today. Qinming shattered the spiritual crystal. Instantly, his pores opened wide, and even the heavy rain couldn't stop the medicine's fragrance from spreading. Just smelling it made one's body feel light, as if about to ascend to immortality. He swallowed half of the divine medicine in one gulp, carefully feeling the changes within his body. Afterward, he swiftly sealed away the remaining half. This was a true life-saving treasure. He wanted to observe its effects first rather than squandering it all at once. The medicinal efficacy is astonishing. In an instant, Qinming felt a divine radiance nourishing his 5 viscera and every inch of his body. He glowed from head to toe. A surging heat rushed through him as his primordial essence began to awaken, and vitality spread throughout his being. The weakness in his body receded like a tide, replaced by a burgeoning life force, as if spring had returned to the great earth, bringing forth lush grass and singing orioles. His flesh and blood became translucent, and his lost essence qi began to return. Consuming the divine medicine, combined with my cultivation, should be enough. Qin Ming's body burned with heat, his blood seething and his essence qi boiling. His condition was improving, yet his face was clouded with murderous intent. Damn that 8th-realm being and that young man. You made me waste half a stock of divine medicine. This was a priceless treasure, a rare find that one could only hope to encounter. He had no choice. If he didn't consume it now, how could he reverse his crippled body? And without a full recovery, how could he seek revenge on the young man and reclaim the vast amount of vitality he had lost? Then, Qin Ming closed his eyes. In the rainy night, he meditated on various true scriptures, intending to cultivate certain secret techniques to trigger a physical transformation and completely break free from his predicament. Nearby, lightning continued to strike down from the sky. Qin Ming did not rush to eliminate the remaining wisps of death energy within his body, he needed thunder-fire body tempering. After a moment, he actively drew down the lightning. The primordial myriad thunder seal is best cultivated in this kind of weather. In an instant, thunder and fire intertwined here. He used the lightning runes to condense a wine bowl, drinking one bowl after another of the thunder fire nectar to temper his physique. Are there really this many medicinal toxins in my body? Qin Ming's expression soured. These were all toxins accumulated from blood-replenishing medicines. In the lightning, they were refined into invisible ash and expelled from his body. In the time that followed, he continuously circulated the primordial myriad thunder seal, using the thunder and fire to refine his body, cleanse his flesh, and wash away the harmful medicinal properties. He did not know how many bowls of thunder medicine he had drunk. After being repeatedly nourished by the lightning, he finally felt his body was purified, and only then did he stop. Now it's time to cultivate some techniques that will aid in my physical transformation. Qin Ming started with the extraordinary techniques he had encountered early on, progressing step by step. His first choice was the dragon serpent scripture. This technique was extraordinary, containing the principles of transformation from serpent to dragon. When the physical body was shattered, one would fight to survive in the face of absolute despair. If one could endure the great tribulation, they would soar like a dragon in the heavens. In the past, Tiān, the ancestor of the Path of Awakening, had also studied this sutra in depth. Amidst the torrential rain in the pitch-black heaven and earth, dragon roars echoed. Qin Ming used the silk book technique to activate this scripture, drawing out its power to reverse death and seek life. In a daze, he felt as if he were transforming into a dragon. His skin cracked open, and crimson liquid merged with the falling rain as his flesh and blood rapidly restructured amidst the thunderlight. He was like a great serpent molting, soaring toward the heavens to become a heavenly dragon. Excellent. The power of awakening is surging. My physical potential is being unlocked. The transformation has begun. Qin Ming's bones shuddered. From his cracked skin, bone fragments were forced out. He knew this violent change wasn't caused by the divine technique's mastery, but by his crippled body having hit rock bottom. Some of his bones were flawed, and now they were being purged to be reforged. Then, his skin split and peeled away continuously. In the flashes of lightning, Qin Ming stood blood-soaked. His internal skeleton first cracked, then healed, while his skin constantly shed and renewed, accompanied by a nascent qi mechanism. As the dragon serpent transformation concluded, Qin Ming took out a space bracelet and stored the bone fragments and old skin inside. Time to cultivate the divine cicada scripture. This is another cultivation technique that aids in transformation. Qin Ming continued to use the silk book technique to activate it. His body vibrated, and in the rainy night, it was as if a divine cicada were singing, resonating with the thunder fire. This scripture possessed the wondrous power to reverse life and death. When cultivated to the domain of mastery, one could tear away their old shell, shed their mortal coil, and revive from decay. Thunder and lightning tore through the sky as rain poured down in sheets. Qin Ming's mind and spirit resonated in unison, his body vibrating with the rhythmic chirping of cicadas. His bones clashed violently within, and a blinding divine radiance burned fiercely inside his 5 viscera. He had activated the yin-yang life and death profundity of the divine cicada scripture. His crippled body was torn apart, once again drenched in blood. This time, a massive gash split open across his back. Like a golden cicada shedding its shell, he struggled out of his old, ruined body, covered in gore. As he emerged, he expelled a thick mist of blood and bone fragments. He collected these remains, bone, blood, and skin, into his storage bracelet. This was no mere obsession with collecting, he was saving them to shape his avatars. After this violent metamorphosis, Qin Ming touched his cheek. The crisscrossing wounds had vanished, leaving only faint red marks. Even his white hair was beginning to turn black, the transformation continuing every second. Still not enough. Qin Ming began to cultivate the undying butterfly scripture. Amidst the thunder fire, his form underwent a drastic transformation until he finally broke the cocoon and became a butterfly, leaving him drenched in blood where he stood. As expected, when one is at rock bottom, every effort allows for a massive leap upward. A full recovery is now within reach. Qinming's white hair fell away as black hair regrew, and the scars on his face vanished completely. I'm so hungry. Even after consuming a vast amount of spiritual medicine, he felt he could no longer hold on and needed to eat a massive quantity of food. The main reason was that his physical body was undergoing a violent transformation, continuously expelling bone fragments and purging a large amount of waste blood. His metabolism had accelerated to a terrifying speed, and the changes were occurring rapidly. Qinming took out the black boar meat and roasted it over the true sun fire. The surrounding curtain of rain hissed and evaporated, unable to draw near. Soon after, Qinming began to feast, devouring the meat, which contained astonishing energy, and chewing the spiritual medicine as if it were vegetables, quickly swallowing it all. Tonight, I will fully recover and reach an even higher level. After eating and drinking his fill, Qinming's entire body emitted essence qi, giving him the illusion that he had returned to his peak. Subsequently, he continued his cultivation, allowing his body to undergo further violent changes. It's time for internal refinement. Qinming circulated the 8 scenery divine illumination scripture, using the 5 thunder organ refining technique to stimulate the vitality of his flesh and blood. At this moment, both inside and outside his body, thunder fire raged, tempering his physical form with its double-layered power. Time flowed by. In the latter half of the night, he began to cultivate the sustaining world scripture. His body first aged rapidly, then experienced a rebirth like withered wood meeting spring. Endless green radiance surged from all directions like a tide. Qinming resonated with the mountains and rivers. The essence qi of plants and the pure essence of all things flowed ceaselessly into his body. Legend had it that reaching the highest realm of this cultivation technique could extend one's lifespan by half a lifetime. Nourished by the mountains, rivers, and all living things, Qinming's entire body teemed with spiritual energy. The primordial unity scripture is truly profound. Perhaps only by falling to such a desperate state can one comprehend its scriptural meaning of destruction and creation. Within his body, the true scriptures accelerated their circulation, sweeping away the old to make way for the new. It severed the flaws left by his crippled body, filling his entire being with vibrant vitality. The black and white scripture pierces through the mysteries of yin-yang, naturally allowing one to reverse life and death. It is especially suited for cultivation here in Black-White Mountain. This place was once old Lu's Dao lineage. A curtain of rain veiled heaven and earth as thunderfire continuously struck down. Qinming diligently cultivated the true scripture, mastering every secret technique related to transformation. His body underwent constant changes, shedding layer after layer of old skin. He even shattered his own bones multiple times, repeatedly refining them. During this period, due to the drastic and obvious changes in his physical body, he consumed vast quantities of black boar meat to supplement his needs and support his cultivation. By the time night passed, Qinming had undergone a heaven and earth transformation. His black hair flowed freely, and his eyes were as clear as crystal, shooting out brilliant divine light with every blink. The wrinkles at the corners of his eyes had completely vanished, restoring his youth. Furthermore, his cultivation had reached a new level, ascending to the 8th heaven of the Grandmaster realm. Bone shattering, blood discarding, old skin shedding, the mystical technique recorded in the inner sage, outer demon true scripture can be used to refine a crippled body. Qinming was now full of vigor and vitality. To achieve this, he had consumed many precious medicines and even half of his divine medicine. Only after comprehending various true scriptures did he barely recover and break through. Still not enough. He frowned, feeling that his primordial essence was still lacking. Otherwise, he should have been even more powerful than he was now. Qinming believed that if he could reclaim his lost vitality, he could advance to an even higher level. This night's transformation was actually less than ideal, yielding half the result with twice the effort. In the next instant, he withdrew his true body into the old cloth, leaving his pure yang consciousness attached to the outside to begin refining the crippled body. He murmured to himself, it's time to find old Lu, contact the experts outside, and attempt a reverse hunt. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 716, Reunion. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Dark clouds loomed overhead, and a torrential downpour lashed the land. The entire black and white mountain was engulfed in the gale and rain. Occasional bolts of lightning tore through the night sky, momentarily illuminating the pitch-black forest. I almost forgot. Old Lu is a wanted man, Qinming muttered. While others might not know, he was well aware that 500 years ago, Lumo had already been put on the Jade Capital's wanted list. He was a fugitive. If Qinming were to openly seek help, he might end up getting old Lu killed early. Lumo was a man with a criminal record, and he was currently at his weakest. He was already being hunted by the golden figure and the silver eyeballs. If another powerful force joined the fray, would he have any chance of survival? Qinming had originally planned to ascend to heaven and request the intervention of the golden ranking and the Dao ranking. But now, he was beginning to feel a massive headache coming on. And then there's me. Qinming thought of his own situation, realizing he wasn't doing much better than old Lu. To the outside world, he was already dead, hunted down by that golden figure. His confidants, his sworn brothers, and all his acquaintances believed he had been killed 4 years ago. What if they report this to the Night Province High Command? Qinming's expression darkened. If he were to walk out alive and well right now, asking the various experts to hunt the killer, what kind of situation would he face? Would some hot-tempered, top-tier ancestor seize him and refine him on the spot? Even the good-natured ancient monsters would likely immediately try to soul-search him. After all, who would believe he could escape from an 8-realm being? A chill ran down Qinming's spine. This meant that if he dared to leave Black and White Mountain, he would likely be ganged up on by both his allies and his enemies. He was essentially a man without an official existence. His predicament was truly precarious. I must avoid internal strife and any misjudgments. Qinming pondered. He needed to find someone who would be tolerant enough and trust him completely, otherwise, something terrible might happen. The first choice for such a person was, naturally, old Lu. Moreover, he desperately needed to communicate with Lumo in advance and warn him of the enemy's approach and their intent to seize his heavenly god Dao fruit. But he had been in the mountain for quite some time now. Had old Lu really not sensed his presence? Or was Lu Tiān, heavenly immortal Lu, completely asleep, severed from the outside world? The curtain of rain hung down, crashing like a waterfall. Calm down. Qinming comforted himself. Don't panic when things go wrong. His expression was grim as he hurried to refine the outer demon. He had gathered bone fragments, old skin, and stale blood, all of which he had kneaded together and refined with a special secret technique. They had already taken on a humanoid shape. It must be said that the inner sage, outer demon cultivation technique possessed the extraordinary power to seize the great fortune of heaven and earth. No wonder the 8-realm beings beyond the heavens used it as their fundamental scripture. Qinming seemed to be turning stone to gold, transforming waste into treasure. He successfully refined an avatar that shared his own features, though its hair was stark white and its face was pale and worn. At a glance, there's no discernible difference. Even he found it hard to believe, the result feeling profoundly eerie. The inner sage, outer demon true scripture contained a forbidden domain technique that could split one's own flesh to cultivate an outer demon. Relatively speaking, the materials Qinming had used were of poor quality. The fact that he succeeded was remarkable. The only flaw was the avatar's eyes. They appeared dim and cloudy, and soon, 2 streaks of blood trickled down its face. In the depths of this ancient forest, the outer demon's appearance was truly unsettling. Qinming spoke. I grant you new life. Once one entered the Grandmaster realm, they could regenerate flesh and blood. Qinming had the discarded body consume several precious medicine herbs of immense vitality before he began to circulate the true scripture, meticulously reshaping the form. Even an ordinary Grandmaster could already reconstruct a broken body. How much more could Qinming achieve, who had mastered the secret techniques recorded in the inner sage, outer demon? In the final stage, he even summoned thunder fire, using heaven and earth as a great fortune furnace to forge his outer demon avatar. It is done, Qinming nodded in satisfaction. Though he felt that this outer demon, forged from scrap material, had many shortcomings, upon closer inspection, it was not as wretched as he had imagined. Even if the skin shed by the great sage had lost its spiritual essence, it was still stronger than the skin of an ordinary Grandmaster. And though the great sage's remnant bones were porous, that was only relative to his own peak condition. Therefore, these bones, blood, and skin were still considered precious materials. To this end, Qinming did not hesitate to use a portion of his blood essence to further refine and empower the body. The blood essence he had left within the tattered cloth long ago still shone brilliantly, brimming with vibrant vitality. After infusing the avatar with this divine substance, Qinming began to circulate Lu Tiān's black-white scripture, walking through the great mountain and resonating with the entire mountain range. Behind him, the black and white diagram materialized, radiating a profound and harmonious Tao resonance, the most direct manifestation of having mastered the scripture to an incredibly advanced level. Regrettably, he remained unable to elicit any response from Lu Mo. The only consolation for Qinming was that he had recovered his true body. That golden figure is cautious by nature. It has not yet entered Night Province and remains hundreds of thousands of miles away, needing to descend through the Bronze Gate. Ever since Qin was sent back to his ancestral home, he had been secretly resonating with the ethereal blue soul light, learning much of the situation. He could now fully take its place. He had already removed the Bronze Gate from the tattered cloth and kept it on his person. Similarly, he had also released the divine talisman with the silver eyeball. After all, this was a discarded body, and it did not bear his pure yang consciousness. He had already stowed away his true body, attaching his consciousness to the cloth and controlling the outer demon through resonance. Qinming's immediate life and death crisis was temporarily resolved. However, Lumo was at his weakest, his situation perilously precarious. Old Lu's imprint is within my true body, now isolated by the cloth. If I could only meet him now, it would be for the best. Unfortunately, things did not go as hoped. In the latter half of the night, Qinming walked alone through the storm, traversing the entire black and white mountain region, yet he found nothing. His brow furrowed deeply as he turned back. In the darkness, Wen Rui had been waiting quietly beneath the black and white twin trees at the village entrance. His expression was tense, his heart heavy with the fear that something might have happened to his uncle. He couldn't shake the feeling that Qinming was different now, not the same man he used to be. The talking sparrow, red squirrel, and Thunder King bird were also gathered beneath the trees. When Qinming's figure finally emerged from the darkness, they all breathed a silent sigh of relief. "Why are you all standing out here in the rain?" Qinming asked. Wen Rui noticed a gentle smile on his uncle's face, one far warmer and more approachable than before. An inexplicable intuition told him that this was the uncle he remembered. Qinming had smiled before, but those smiles had always felt distant. "The Mountain Lord. He looks like he's glowing," the talking sparrow murmured softly. After leaving the Great Mountain, Qinming had intended to make one last attempt, to seek guidance from the Divine Matriarch. But now, as he gazed at the black and white twin trees at the village entrance, he found himself lost in thought, a faint premonition stirring within him. "You all go back," Qinming said. "I've had a sudden realization and wish to sit quietly beneath this tree for a while." As he spoke, he walked directly to the twin trees and settled into a cross-legged position. Wen Rui, the talking sparrow, and the others exchanged glances, then silently withdrew. Qinming closed his eyes, resonating with the black and white twin trees. He felt that the momentary daze he had experienced earlier wasn't an illusion, something was amiss here. Rumble. In an instant, a sound like a mountain collapsing or a tsunami crashing roared in his ears, deafeningly loud. His body shook violently, nearly sending him crashing to the ground. Qinming's exhausted body was forced against the tree trunk as he gasped for air. What did he see? Across the vast black and white mountain, a colossal entity was on the move. Though his eyes were closed, vivid images played out before his mind. Amidst a raging storm, a giant beast forged from exotic metal appeared, its scale boundless and magnificent. It seemed to be in agony, as if it were to crush the entire mountain range and tear the pitch-black sky asunder, directly summoning lightning and torrential rain. Qinming couldn't see its full form, it was too immense. As it crossed the black and white mountain and churned within the sea of night mist, a single eye, as vast as a mountain, was revealed. "Shao Qin, are you dead?" The colossal being spoke, its voice resonating directly within Qinming's heart. Qinming knew, it was old Lu. The storm and lightning that night were all summoned by Lu Tianshan, his emotions manifesting as terrifying celestial phenomena. Yet, though he seemed close, as if standing right on black and white mountain, he could not descend. He remained halted in the distance, separated from them by the sea of night mist. It was just like when Qinming had fallen into the physical abyss, unable to return to the mortal world. Lumo was in a peculiar state, able only to stand motionless in the distance. "Senior, I am not dead," Qinming exclaimed with excitement. Clearly, Lumo had sensed the outside world and seemingly believed Qinming had perished. This was why old Lu's emotions had surged so violently upon their reunion, manifesting as those terrifying anomalies and the raging storm across the great world. "Senior, someone tried to use me as bait to ambush you on Black and White Mountain. It's an 8-realm being. There's also a legendary ancient giant fiend, and the silver eyeballs have appeared." Qinming wasted no time, quickly relaying all the dangers to old Lu, fearing he would fall into a perilous trap. "Are you unharmed?" The colossal figure in the distance tried to draw closer, but ultimately couldn't. He seemed to be trying to get a better look at Qinming's true condition. Qinming was certain, that was the true Lu Tianshan. Leaning against the black and white twin trees, he resonated with old Lu's most genuine emotional fluctuations. He spoke urgently, "I've cultivated the turbid world green lotus and the 9 heavens manual. My pure yang consciousness fell into the abyss, but it has now broken free and returned alive." He quickly explained the details, terrified that old Lu would suffer a devastating loss and perish in the black and white mountain. Lumo replied, I am currently in deep slumber, my true body severed from the outside world. I cannot emerge for now. However, a wisp of my 8th realm divine sense has informed me that you have indeed returned to life. In an instant, the dark clouds shrouding the black and white mountain dispersed, and the torrential rain ceased abruptly. Qin felt a surge of emotion. Such atrocious weather was a manifestation of old Lu's state of mind, a manifestation of his sorrow over his own impending death. He said, Old man, you have to find a way to save yourself. If all else fails, you should flee far away. He paused briefly before continuing, I thought about contacting those in heaven, asking the golden ranking and Dao ranking to intervene. But you're wanted by the Jade Capital, and I was afraid that doing so would only bring you harm. Lumo replied, there is no escape. This is my tribulation. I have flayed my skin and scraped my bones, returning to my primordial state. Now, as I seek to step into the 8th realm with my original true body, my path will inevitably be obstructed. The so-called tribulation chi did not only manifest as heavenly tribulations, it could also take the form of human tribulations blocking one's path. According to the experiences of those who came before, even if I were to retreat and successfully escape the Black and White Mountain, a great tribulation would still find me elsewhere. Rather than that, Lumo chose to face his tribulation on his own home turf. Qin heart sank. Is old Lu really going to meet his end in the Black and White Mountain? I have made preparations, Lumo said. He gazed into the distance. After all, who doesn't have a few rivals? Qin leaned against a tree trunk, his eyes closed. Yet he could truly feel a colossal being within Black and White Mountain opening its eyes, unleashing a terrifying chi aura as if it were returning to crush the mortal realm. He asked, are you sure you can handle this? Lumo replied, my situation is unique. Retracing my steps, defying death to seek life, and contending with heaven for great fortune, the obstacles are countless. Who could possibly claim to be certain of success? This was a struggle against heaven for survival, a quest to reap the Tao fruit and extend his lifespan. Such a path was bound to invite a great tribulation. I'll just do my best, Lumo said. Qin countered, I'll go to Tushita Palace and Xuanhuan Dao lineage to ask for help. Lumo was a fugitive of the Jade Capital, but he hadn't offended the other supreme Dao lineages. Old Lu shook his head. The journey is long. Besides, if you go, they might not believe you've been resurrected. Someone might use that as an excuse to probe your sea of consciousness. People are unpredictable. His tone turned resolute. I will handle this myself. Qin worry deepened. This was no minor matter. This was Lumo's great tribulation of the 8th realm. He wasn't facing just one opponent, a single slip-up would mean the total annihilation of his body and spirit. Old Lu's expression grew solemn. The ancient giant fiend you mentioned, the silver eyeballs have appeared too. That was unexpected. I'll need to study this carefully. After a moment of contemplation, he said, how about this, in 2 days, activate the bronze gate and that divine talisman. Qin expression shifted instantly. What was old Lu planning? To actually take the initiative to fight. And was he trying to trigger all the crises at once? But could he withstand it all alone? Qin asked, old man, if I were to place you inside a pocket dimension artifact, could you avoid the tribulation? Lumo shook his head. Whether it's a heavenly tribulation or a human tribulation, in the end, one cannot escape or avoid it. I must face it personally. Otherwise, the next one will be even more fierce. Then, he smiled freely. 2 days is enough. My 8-realm body should be able to emerge and fight the opponent. Qin sighed. You can actually still smile at a time like this. Lumo replied, one must simply face it calmly. Afterward, the two spoke in secret for a long time. Qin recounted all his experiences involving the golden figure to Lu Tiān for his reference. When the shallow night arrived, the wind and rain had already subsided. Qin slowly opened his eyes, feeling somewhat dazed. Was the latter half of the night just a dream, or had his consciousness truly been lucid as he conversed with old Lu? Of course it was real. Lumo's low voice drifted from the rustling black and white twin trees, after which the area fell completely silent. Qin rose, keeping the 2-day appointment firmly in mind. His heart felt heavy, for old Lu had forbidden him from calling for reinforcements. Old Lu was strong, but how could he face all the experts alone? When the heavenly god Lu spoke of adversaries, he was certainly not bluffing. Even before he had vanished, those opponents had launched an attack on the territory of the Black and White Mountain. Even now, those two were still coveting his divine embryo, which was undergoing transformation. These two, like Lu Mo, were also fugitives from the Jade Capital. Their names were Yu Heng and Mo Yuan, ranked 7th and 8th on the wanted list. I have received a top-secret report. Lu Mo has reached the critical stage of his nirvana and has officially transformed into the most fragrant 8-realm divine medicine. It is ready for harvest. Time flies. Has this day finally arrived? Thinking of the past, it is truly lamentable. We have been away from the Jade Capital for over 500 years. These were the low whispers of two decaying heavenly immortals. They indeed held endless sentiment, unable to forget their lives in the Jade Capital. For their origins were far from simple, short of being imperial scions, they were as good as it. Otherwise, Yuheng and Mo Yuan would never have had the chance to step into the Eighth Realm. They had been bestowed the fruit of creation, taking a shortcut unimaginable to ordinary mortals, allowing them to stand high in the heavens and look down upon all living beings. However, the heavens are unpredictable. The terrifying clan backing them fell into ruin in the Jade Capital overnight. The two found themselves in a dire situation, forced to become rogue cultivators. They had to keep a low profile, enduring years of hardship before finally choosing to flee. Yu Heng spoke. Reliable sources say the ancient monster who once sought to study Lu Mo is reaching the end of his lifespan and will soon pass away. Do you think this will have any repercussions? Mo Yuan replied, the Jade Capital has only just shaken off the entanglement of the colossal entity. They're still struggling to resolve countless historical issues. What impact could this possibly have right now? Regardless, we should join forces to gather the medicinal herbs. Our only concern should be preventing others from beating us to them. 2 days later, a wondrous spectacle appeared in the black and white mountain as black and white chi slowly ascended. At the same time, the mysterious force, manifested by the golden figure, that had sealed off the black and white mountains was shattered. A shimmering bird flew into Twin Tree Village and reported, Lord Talking Sparrow, we can fly out now. We are no longer isolated from the outside world. Talking Sparrow's expression turned grave as he sent a telepathic message, tell the others not to send word to Kai Sha City or Kunling for now. The Mountain Lord wishes to be left alone and does not want to see old acquaintances. It was obvious that not all the strange birds of the Black and White Mountain were under his and the Thunder King bird's control. This territory was vast, and Black and White Mountain harbored a multitude of aberrant creatures. Before long, the news leaked out. Qin Ming, who had vanished 5 years ago, had appeared in Twin Tree Village. What? Qin Ming is back. Where has he been these past 5 years? His hair is completely white. Has he aged prematurely? Some old acquaintances worried and prepared to rush to Black and White Mountain. Others showed strange expressions. For instance, within the Kui clan of Night Province, Kui Chongxiao remarked, could it be that the heavens couldn't stand to watch him anymore and caused his cultivation to go awry? It is time. A voice echoed from within Black and White Mountain. Old Lu was ready. Moreover, he had already acted. A brand new seal activated within Qin Ming's waist body, manifesting as a black and white diagram that radiated outward. On Qin Ming's body, the palm-sized bronze gate revived on its own, even without being activated. Found him. In a magnificent temple in an unknown realm, a golden figure spoke indifferently, its eyes shooting out 2 terrifying beams of light. An anomaly has appeared in Black and White Mountain, and black and white chi is billowing. Lu Mo's divine embryo can no longer be hidden, it has reached the critical moment of transformation. Lu Mo, this reunion is now inevitable. Perhaps it will also be our final meeting. Far away, Yu Heng and Mo Yuan sprang to their feet upon receiving the latest news. At the same moment, Qin Ming's waist body lightly flicked its fingers, activating the divine talisman left for him by the silver eyeballs. The atmosphere in the Black and White Mountain region had grown so tense and solemn that it was almost suffocating. Old Lu. Qin Ming's heart was heavy with dread. Lu Mo sighed. Worrying is useless. At the same time, the newly activated imprint on Qin Ming's waist body, the black and white diagram, revealed Old Lu's weathered face. I'm about to engage in a blood battle. Life or death is uncertain. Do you want to raid the golden figure's lair and seek revenge on that young man? Of course. Qin Ming nodded, though a hidden concern lingered. It was the enemy's territory, and the risks would likely be uncontrollable. I will go with you. The imprint, transformed from the black and white diagram, projected a blurred image of Old Lu. Qin Ming was astonished and uncertain. A life and death battle is about to erupt here at Black and White Mountain. Are you still splitting your strength? Lu Mo's voice was grim. At worst, my body will perish, and my Tao will be extinguished. Since this is an unconventional blood battle, I must use unconventional methods. Let them fight their battle, and I will fight mine. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 717, The Hunters Converge. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The black-white mountain range stretched endlessly, its peaks piercing the depths of the night sky like pillars upholding the heavens, majestic and imposing. Within the dense mist, the partial silhouette of a giant beast emerged, spanning the space between heaven and earth, its vastness boundless. When its eyes opened and closed, they resembled the sun and moon hanging in the void. This was the body of a heavenly god that Lu Mo had forged after altering his life form. Relatively speaking, this was already a divine body of extraordinary beauty. The various earth immortals of the world, as well as the decayed heavenly immortals, never revealed their true bodies lightly, for their appearances were all hideous and terrifying, enough to make one's blood run cold. The giant beast was not among the mountains, but seemed to stand within a vast abyss, on the verge of stepping into the mortal world. Golden radiance pierced the night veil. The palm-sized bronze gate, without being activated, revived on its own, transforming into a colossal gateway. It steamed with rain of light, connecting to a distant place. A golden figure passed through the gate and descended upon Black-White Mountain. He spoke calmly, "Found you." At the same time, the night sky shattered. Within the dense mist, Lumo's body of a heavenly god had already struck early, intending to seize the bronze gate. However, this gate possessed other miraculous properties. The instant it awakened, it had already fled, shooting straight up into the heavens. The bronze gate opened high in the sky, accompanied by a rain of flying immortal light that made the scene both magnificent and utterly divine. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Qinming's crippled body was snatched away by Lumo's body of a heavenly god, while the bronze gate fell into the hands of the golden figure. "You care deeply about him?" The golden figure asked indifferently, standing atop the clouds. He glanced down at the crippled body that had fallen deep into Black-White Mountain. "Shatter." He spoke as if decreeing a heavenly law, controlling the very laws of heaven and earth. With a soft chide, he caused the ethereal blue soul light within Qinming's crippled body to revive and flare, about to explode and destroy the flesh and blood body along with it. In the darkness, a giant beast with only a partial outline visible revealed eyes as vast as mountains. As they opened and closed, Tao imprints interlaced, instantly freezing time and space. The ethereal blue soul light was frozen, unable to think or move. It was instantly torn from Qinming's crippled body and silently annihilated in the void. Clearly, Lumo was cooperating to cover this up. 2 days ago, Qinming had already captured the ethereal blue soul light and imprisoned it within the old cloth. What happened today was merely utilizing the ruined soul once more. Then, Lumo's body of a heavenly god sent Qinming's crippled body away, making it vanish completely into the night. The golden figure's expression remained serene as he raised a hand to seal off the entire area. To him, Qinming's physical body was now utterly useless. In his words, one must make the most of everything, the discarded body had already fulfilled its mission. His earlier display of might had been a ruse, a way to probe the situation and gauge Lumo's condition. And the result? He was highly satisfied. The golden figure stared into the depths of the darkness and said, I smell a refreshing fragrance." He looked behind the giant beast, into the depths of that mysterious realm that did not belong to the mortal world. There, a supreme great medicine seemed to be gradually ripening, captivating his mind. Others could not see it, only an eight-realm being could glimpse such profound mysteries. That place was isolated from the mortal world. A young man slept there, enveloped in a luminous mist, his entire body covered in Tao imprints. The void was densely covered with immortal seals. There, Tao resonance flowers bloomed and withered one after another, turning into a divine rain of light that nourished Lumo's reconstructed true body. If the people of Twin Tree Village saw this, they would surely cry out in shock, for that was Lu Bai. Lumo's body of a heavenly god was constantly overflowing with essence, qi, and spirit, which transferred wisp by wisp to that young man. "Even now, you are still hiding your true self." Speaking from the body of a colossal beast, Lumo's voice boomed like heavenly thunder, shaking the entire region. The mountains and valleys trembled, and the dark clouds in the night sky were blown apart. "Which self of mine do you wish to see?" the golden figure asked, his voice calm. As he spoke, his features twisted and shifted incessantly, and even his consciousness soul light fluctuated in tandem. Lumo's voice grew deep and heavy. "It is a pity for the outstanding figures whose lives you ruined." Immediately after, his massive body of a heavenly god clanged like metal, as if covered in shimmering exotic metal scales that now erupted with a blinding light. Old Lu's voice turned cold and sharp. The being ranked second on the Jade Capital's most wanted list for the past millennium, Wu Yao, that's you, isn't it? Interesting, the golden figure replied, neither confirming nor denying. He was indeed Wu Yao, a terrifyingly powerful expert from ages past. Lumo continued, if we trace back further, you have an even more ancient identity. Wu Yao remained expressionless, offering no reply. He knew, of course, that Lumo would not surrender without a fight. The desperate counterattack of a heavenly god could be extremely dangerous, but he had absolute confidence in himself. Wu Yao looked down into the depths of the fog and said, you are at your weakest. Even if you fight back desperately, it will be futile. In the end, I will subdue you without sustaining so much as a minor injury. Lumo stared back coldly, saying nothing. Wu Yao's voice grew cold as he said, Lumo, if you cooperate and surrender the divine embryo, I will spare the primordial imprint of your consciousness. That young body beside you, once the youngest great sage of this era, is now an empty shell. It is the perfect vessel for you to inhabit. Simultaneously, he unleashed a terrifying pressure that warped time and space, filling the entire Earth realm with the patterns of his great Tao. He was preparing to strike a lethal blow. The golden figure hovered high in the sky, looking down with absolute certainty. You have no chance. If you wish to preserve your dignity and keep a sliver of hope for survival, you would be wise to do as I say. Not only Heavenly God Lu, but even Qin Ming could no longer restrain himself. He was tempted to storm Wu Yao's lair immediately and kill his highly anticipated future self, that young man. Lu Mo's face was cold, his giant beast form radiating a boundless killing intent. Wu Yao, cautious and suspicious by nature, hesitated to strike, his mind still probing for something. Yet he was fearless. He possessed the bronze gate, which could grant him a direct escape if all else failed. To this end, he had inspected it several times, ensuring it was in perfect working order before stowing it away within his exotic heavenly treasure. Suddenly, the domain Wu Yao had sealed was violently torn apart by a decaying force. A dark figure with a pair of silver eyeballs descended from the rift in the sky. An ancient legendary great fiend. Wu Yao retreated, his expression grave. The appearance of such an ancient monster was completely unexpected. In a sense, he and Lu Mo were witnessing history, a legendary fiend spirit stepping into reality. The dark figure descended slowly, its silver eyeballs weaving immortal seals as it spoke. So, there truly is a nirvana divine embryo. To find an 8-realm great medicine in such a dire environment is truly a rare feat. Behind the figure, a small courtyard descended, accompanied by a divine and wondrous scene. It was a place where flowers and herbs bloomed in abundance, and the fragrance of medicine hung heavy in the air. The fiend spirit's power was unfathomable, leaving even the golden figure's heart heavy with dread. The dark shadow fixed its gaze first on Lu Mo, then on Wu Yao, declaring, I loathe others of the hunter lineage, my existence alone suffices. The implication was clear, anyone like him, must die. The golden figure's expression turned solemn. With such a dangerous ancient giant fiend attempting to intercept the prize, how should he choose his next move? Heavenly God Lu said in a deep voice, Wu Yao, let's join forces against him. The golden figure was momentarily startled, the proposal was undeniably tempting. He understood perfectly well what Lu Mo was plotting, yet he had no desire to refuse. After all, with the exotic treasure, the bronze gate, in his hand, he could escape calmly at any moment. Joining forces this way was a viable option. The dark figure stepped forward. The flowers and grass in the small courtyard before him were exceptionally vibrant, it was his mysterious domain, his pure land, expanding outward. To him, Lu Mo, currently undergoing nirvana and fallen to his weakest point, was nothing more than a sentient ancient medicine. Therefore, he focused his attention on the golden figure. He sighed, the era of the Jade Capital's entanglement with the colossal entity has ended. After I harvest the medicine today, I will journey far away. Otherwise, once the Jade Capital fully revived and began resolving its historical legacies, he might face trouble and danger if he didn't withdraw in time. Immediately, he took the initiative to strike, launching a fierce assault on the golden figure. The small courtyard seemed to ripple with the power of time. Boom! The heavens collapsed and the earth split. Heavenly God Lu reacted even more violently than Wu Yao, directly unleashing a terrifying beam of light toward the black shadow with the silver eyeball. A colossal claw, seemingly forged from exotic metal, tore through the sky, its vast form completely blanketing the area ahead. The golden figure was taken aback. The divine pupa is surprisingly reliable, it's even more proactive than I am when trouble strikes. Instantly, with him at the center, space and time fell into chaos as Wu Yao also struck out with overwhelming force. Suddenly, the sky, locked by the law runes, was torn open once more, admitting uninvited guests. 2 decayed heavenly immortals, Yu Heng and Mo Yuan, had actually arrived at Black White Mountain together. They had joined forces to smash through the barrier, breaking into this chaotic mysterious realm. They had been spying on this place for some time. Today, they discovered that deep within this realm, the black-white light continued to billow, and the immortal Tao's aura flowed without end. This extraordinary phenomenon confirmed the top-secret information they had received. With that, the two of them charged in. They had appeared in Night Prefecture before, but only through casually refined incarnations, nothing compared to their true bodies now. The arrival of 2 heavenly immortals in their true bodies made their intentions clear, they were determined to seize Lu Mo's divine embryo. Yu Heng's pupils constricted. Mo Yuan was also shocked. Someone had beaten them here. After assessing the situation, both felt a tremor of alarm. The Silver Legend. That fiend spirit has existed for at least 5,000 years. In an instant, they both considered retreating. The golden figure immediately called out, "Fellow Taoists Yu Heng and Mo Yuan, you've arrived just in time. He also immediately identified himself as Wu Yao, another name on the Jade Capital Most Wanted list. Then, he sent a telepathic transmission. The peerless great medicine is right before our eyes. Don't you want to take a chance? In this unique great era, the so-called ancient giant fiend cannot unleash its full power. We can slay it. What truly broke Yu Heng and Mo Yuan's resolve was when Lu Mo also sent a secret telepathic transmission, asking to join forces with them. Agreed. We kill the ancient giant fiend first, then strike Wu Yao. Sounds good to me. Yu Heng and Mo Yuan exchanged glances, and after a brief, silent communication, they charged into the fray. As for Lu Mo, he was merely the prey. His true body had already reverted to its origin, transforming into divine medicine. His heavenly god physique was a mere shell, ready to crumble at any moment, hardly a threat. Vast sword chi erupted deep within Black-White Mountain. Normally, it would have been enough to cleave the entire sky asunder, but now, very little of it leaked out. The combatants were advancing toward the mysterious realm, holding back their full strength to avoid causing a massive disturbance in the mortal world. The so-called mysterious realm was shrouded in dense fog, as dark as an abyss and seemingly churning with the waves of a vast ocean. This was the Sea of Mist, a place only beings at the Ancestral Realm or above could enter. Those who walked the path to divinity also established their divine kingdoms in such realms. In the past, when the Six Imperial and the past Tathagata fought, they had also entered this kind of realm to battle. Now, Old Lu's divine embryo resided here, far removed from the reality world. The experts present shared a silent understanding. None of them wanted to cause a major commotion and risk being detected by the Jade Capital. Thus, the powerful figures pressed deeper into the realm. If they could seize the opportunity to strike directly at Lu Mo's Nirvana true body and snatch the Eighth Realm ancient medicine, it would be the perfect outcome. They could simply turn and flee. Even from outside the battlefield, Qinming had anticipated this possibility. He warned aloud, "Old Lu, be careful. They're heading straight for your divine embryo." Before the battle had even begun, Lu Mo's body of a heavenly god had already sent his crippled body out of the formation. Now, Qinming stood before the black and white twin trees at the village entrance, conversing with the black-white diagram beside him. Within the diagram, Old Lu's weathered face appeared, his expression grim as he gazed upon the battlefield. He sighed, "Whether we succeed or fail, we must simply do our best." Hearing this, Qinming's heart sank. Two more heavenly immortals just entered the fray. For Old Lu, this is truly a desperate situation. Qinming lamented, "Old man, you chose the worst possible place for seclusion. Your enemies have all arrived, and they know you're at your most vulnerable moment." Lu Mo nodded. Yu Heng and Mo Yuan received top-secret information and intervened right on schedule. A wave of helplessness washed over Qinming. Who's sending the messages? Soon, his brow furrowed. How did Old Lu know those two received top-secret information just in time? Qinming froze, unable to stop himself from turning to look at Old Lu. The thought felt absurd. Could Old Lu have been secretly sending the messages? If so, it was utterly outrageous. Had Lu Mo been secretly sending messages for days, telling his enemies to come harvest his divine embryo right on time? If that were true, the situation might not be so bleak after all. But Qinming had clearly seen the gravity on Old Lu's face earlier. Besides, the two of them had been speaking privately for a long time, and every sign indicated that heavenly god Lu was not confident about crossing the tribulation. Because Lu Mo kept sighing. At this moment, Old Lu exhaled a turbid breath. Sigh, the blood battle has begun. Life and death are in the hands of fate. I won't worry about it anymore. He stood within the black-white diagram. Get ready. We're going to Wu Yao's lair. As he spoke, a palm-sized bronze gate appeared in his hand. Qinming was stunned. That exotic treasure had flown off on its own after awakening, and the golden figure had even snatched it away. How was it now in Old Lu's hand? Lu Mo explained, "This is the extraordinary power of the black and white scripture. Yin and yang transform, the void becomes solid, and the solid becomes void. At the critical moment, I swapped his bronze gate." But he held the bronze gate in his hand and examined it carefully, Qinming countered. For a short time, the false becomes true, and the void becomes solid. It's indistinguishable from the true bronze gate. Even I couldn't tell the difference after casting the technique. Old Lu had pulled off a sleight of hand, successfully swapping the bronze gate. Qinming stared blankly. He felt his understanding of the black and white scripture was still far from complete. The void becomes solid, and the solid becomes void. Yin and yang mutually transform, making truth and falsehood indistinguishable. Lu Mo tossed the bronze gate out. It sank into the fire spring beneath the black and white twin trees, and the gate vanished instantly. At the same time, the two great trees, one black and one white, swayed, their dense patterns of the great Tao rippling with a hazy sword light, ready to form a terrifying killing formation at any moment. Faint black and white light spread, covering Twin Tree Village. Then, the light quickly faded away, vanishing without a trace. Lumo said, if the aftermath of a great battle were to rage over here, the formation would be activated. It shouldn't be a big problem. They also don't want the Jade Capital to notice this place. Suddenly, his blurred figure trembled violently. What's wrong? Qinming was startled. The black-white diagram imprint beside him shone, becoming somewhat unstable. Lumo said, my body of a heavenly god was attacked. Wu Yao, Yu Heng, and Mo Yuan seized the opportunity, trying to strike directly at my divine embryo. Without a doubt, the so-called alliance was fragile beyond measure. Those people, once they seized an opportunity, would try every means to harvest the 8-realm divine medicine. It was a chaotic melee. Deep within Black-White Mountain, inside the mysterious realm it was connected to, Lumo's body of a heavenly god coughed up blood. The exotic metal scales on the vast, boundless giant beast were damaged and covered in cracks. The situation had been truly critical just now. He had repeatedly clashed with the shadow figure, Wu Yao, and the others. Only after his divine embryo hid did the situation improve slightly. Buzz. At this moment, Yu Heng's heaven-piercing sword chi tore through the entire sea of mist, allowing sword light to illuminate every inch of space between heaven and earth, piercing directly into the deepest part of everyone's consciousness. This sword strike slashed both the physical body and the spirit, its power boundless and terrifying. Of course, this time Yu Heng's main target was that shadow figure. The golden figure let out a thunderous roar as billions of strands of golden radiance erupted outward. Suddenly, a black hole materialized before him, devouring all things and engulfing both the black shadow and the small courtyard. Beneath the black and white twin trees, Lumo spoke. I am fine. My body of a heavenly god was injured, but my virtual body has grown stronger because of it. Qinming was stunned. Was this the so-called void becoming solid? In the black-white diagram, Lumo's figure was lifelike, almost identical to his former true body. He said, we can set off now. He led Qinming into the ground where the roots of the black and white twin trees were located, directly activating the bronze gate. With a swoosh, the two stepped through the gate. In the unknown realm, within the grand divine hall, a young man paced back and forth, unable to even find the mind to drink the finest enlightenment tea. The golden figure had once said that if nothing unexpected happened, he could simply reach out and pluck the 8-realm great medicine without any danger. But now, Wu Yao had been gone for quite some time. Suddenly, he sensed something. The palm-sized bronze gate placed in the divine hall awakened, sending ripples outward. This was originally a pair of bronze gates that could connect two places. Could it be that his past self, the golden figure, had embarked on the journey back? The young man stared ahead, his heartstrings taut. Whether the medicine had been successfully harvested concerned his future. With a swoosh, Qinming stepped out of the gate. The young man's pupils shrank sharply. He never expected to see the very body he had crippled. At this moment, Qinming's white hair flowed freely, carrying an air of profound weariness. He had mimicked the ethereal blue soul light, his eyes now interwoven with blue glows. Why did you bring back this useless body? The young man frowned. He said in a deep voice, we should have destroyed it after using it. Why keep this broken corpse? There is a secret on his body, Qinming said. The young man looked over. Then, he saw the white-haired figure swing a palm toward his face. In truth, the young man was highly vigilant. Though he was asking questions, his nerves were already taut. As long as the golden figure had not returned, anything could happen. He dodged the attack instantly, his expression changing completely. Because he saw the heavenly light surging, the chaos force erupting fully, and the origin of the 10-colored sacred demonic essence blooming. Unless Qinming had been resurrected, how could this ruined body possibly unleash such techniques? At this moment, Qinming had activated the Green Lotus secret technique. Not to kill the enemy instantly, but to seal the area, wanting to vent his anger first. The Green Lotus swayed, unleashing a sequence of mystical techniques in rapid succession. The young man's figure paused for a fraction of a second. Then, with a smack, Qinming's palm struck his left cheek hard, instantly sending blood splattering everywhere. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 718, The Simple Night Prefecture People. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Inside the divine hall, the young man had turned his head to dodge, yet his left cheek still took the blow. His face swelled at a visible rate, the corner of his mouth splitting open as blood trickled down. The slap had come suddenly, its crack sharp and clear. His eyes were like venom-dipped blades, wishing he could gouge out a few chunks of flesh from Qinming. To be slapped in the face, this was an unprecedented humiliation for him. Especially since the one who had struck him was Qinming, the very person he had personally crippled. Veins throbbed on the young man's forehead as he felt the sting of this ultimate disgrace. Qinming spoke, your skin is truly thick. He shook his right hand, feeling a slight ache. He hadn't used his main body, but had instead relied on an incarnation refined from bone fragments, old skin, and waste blood. Striking the man's face had felt like hitting a hard surface. Qin remarked, "That old mug of yours is tough enough to hurt my hand." Without a doubt, such words were bound to incite hatred. The young man's voice turned frigid. "I used you for all you were worth, yet I failed to consume you completely, allowing you to borrow a corpse to return your soul." He did not lose his composure. After all, this was his Dao domain, and he had laid out various formations here. Besides, the opponent had poured all his strength into that single palm strike, yet it had only broken his skin. His cultivation was still inferior. Yet, a shadow lingered over his heart. His past self, the golden figure, had yet to return. Had he encountered some grave trouble? Within the divine hall, massive dragon coiling pillars supported the vaulted ceiling. A crane-beak bronze furnace wafted curls of incense smoke, and a sandalwood table held the four treasures of the study. Qin felt a faint, creeping pressure. The various objects in the hall were woven together into a formation, and it was rapidly awakening. Yet, he remained calm. Heavenly God Lu had followed him, choosing not to reveal himself but to study the place, preparing to dismantle the entire nest. Thus, Qin took his time, surveying the divine hall where he had once suffered so much. His gaze fell upon the bronze pillar ahead, stained with his own blood. He had been chained to it for 4 long years. "Old Lu, is there any danger here?" Qin asked silently. If there were no complications, the two of them would simply uproot the temple and settle their grievances elsewhere. Otherwise, Qin feared that delaying any longer might invite unforeseen complications. Lu Mo replied, "There are some issues, but it is no matter. With me here, you have nothing to worry about." This confirmed the place was indeed dangerous. Had Qin come alone, he might have met a bitter end. Just then, the young man spoke, his voice deep and grave. "What happened at Black White Mountain?" Qin scanned the area before him and replied, "By what right do you question me?" The memories of the past seemed to unfold before his eyes. His heart had been torn open again and again, his blood essence brutally extracted by his enemy. Even now, it seemed to ache with a dull, lingering pain. Qin expression turned frigid. The mere thought of those 4 years made his entire being recoil in disgust. "Die!" The young man suddenly snarled. As the master of this place, he directly activated a killing formation, intending to subdue the crippled body before him. The massive dragon coiling pillars were activated, their Dao imprints glowing and weaving together in the void, extending rapidly like spiritual chains. They manifested as solid objects, clashing with the sound of ordinary iron chains. Behind Qin, a black-white diagram materialized. 2 extreme sword light instantly swept out, severing all the incoming spiritual chains with a series of sharp clangs. The black-white diagram then rotated, causing the Dao imprints on the pillars to flicker and extinguish like candlelight in the wind. Seeing this, the young man's heart sank. The prey had delivered itself to his doorstep, but the situation was turning dire. Old Lu's figure materialized from the black-white diagram. He said, "Wu Yao, since you've left behind a Dao guardian, you might as well release it." Lu Mo. A faint golden figure immediately stepped out from behind the pillars. This was the pure Yang clone created by the 8th-realm being, Wu Yao. It carried a portion of his Dao fruit and guarded his Dao domain. "If the situation becomes untenable, we retreat immediately," the young man transmitted via a secret telepathic message. He represented the future, and his loss was absolutely unacceptable. Qin eyes were deep, and he felt something as he looked over. Since they had already fought their way into the enemy's lair, they would naturally raze it to the ground and leave no survivors. The black-white diagram spun, transforming into yin-yang qi, which completely condensed Old Lu's body. He stood in the divine hall. In an instant, a terrifying energy fluctuation erupted between the two sides, crashing toward each other like a damned sea bursting forth. The void was torn asunder in an instant. Countless immortal seals rained down from beyond the heavens like a meteor shower, giving off an apocalyptic aura. Both unleashed their powers, creating a storm of devastation within the confined space. In the divine hall, one flower of Dao rhyme after another bloomed, each carrying a mystical technique, causing the entire space-time to become chaotic. The golden figure spoke, "You are in the midst of nirvana, yet you dare to divert your energy to come all the way here." Lu Mo replied calmly, "Why not? We're just swapping bases. I'm ceding Black and White Mountain to you." Suddenly, Wu Yao's pure Yang clone stumbled back, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, his expression one of disbelief. His pupils constricted as he asked, "The body of a heavenly god? Could it be that your true body has descended?" Lu Mo's expression remained calm. "Think whatever you wish." The young man behind him felt a chill run down his spine. Has the prey gone mad? How dare he bring his true body here during nirvana? Qin was equally stunned. Old Lu is using the void to feign substance, and substance to feign the void. He has truly mastered the profound mysteries of yin-yang transformation. With a thunderous crash, Lumo stepped forward, crushing the pale gold clone until its body cracked all over, its light instantly extinguished. Go! Wu Yao's clone burst into flames, unleashing a forbidden domain technique to send the young man away. However, Lumo pointed a finger, and the two extreme sword light shot forth, tearing through the void and causing the pale gold figure to explode. The black-white diagram then descended, enveloping the fragments of Wu Yao's clone and refining them into pure energy on the spot, which Lumo directly absorbed. The young man's face turned ashen. He was trapped in a desperate situation. To be ambushed today meant his path forward was now severed. Lumo spoke, Xiao Qin, you can deal with Wu Yao's future self as you please. I'm taking this Dao domain with me. It's a truly extraordinary place. In an instant, the entire hall began to shake. The immortal mountain and spiritual lake outside rose from the ground, and sand and stones soared into the night sky. The vast Dao domain had been uprooted by Lumo. Before long, they had arrived thousands of miles away. The gale wind howled, and lightning crashed and thundered. This was the power of a heavenly god. Lumo had plucked Wu Yao's Dao domain out by the roots. The original site was left empty and barren, not a single blade of grass remaining. This was only because Lumo was constrained by the Great Earth's environment. Otherwise, a heavenly god's techniques would have been even more terrifying. With a thunderous boom, the pitch-black earth trembled violently as the grand Dao domain, with its elegant peaks, lakes shimmering with immortal light, and majestic divine hall, descended from the sky. I'm so hungry, Lumo frowned. He couldn't hold back any longer. He opened his mouth and inhaled. The divine substance and Dao resonance nurtured by the entire Dao domain rose into the air, forming countless streaks of rosy light that flew into his mouth. Lumo! The young man roared. His past self had gone to fish for the divine pupa, only to have the opponent come knocking at his door. Now, the opponent was plundering the Dao domain's accumulated resources. It was truly hateful, yet utterly helpless. Lumo sighed. We are living in a unique era. It is quite difficult for my divine embryo to achieve nirvana. The further I progress, the more I realize my reserves of fortune essence were insufficient. I had no choice but to come here and replenish myself. Qinming was speechless upon hearing this. Old Lu's so-called coping with the Great Tribulation, could this also be considered a part of it? Lacking the necessary fortune to survive the tribulation, he had risked death to raid his opponent's stronghold and bolster his own strength. No wonder he had said, they fight their battles, and I fight mine. Heavenly God Lu had truly gone all out. This was a literal, home swap, raid. The young man's face darkened, his gaze turning deathly cold. Lumo observed, it seems you have only inherited Wu Yao's consciousness from his young and strong days. His main consciousness and cultivation have not yet been transferred to you. At that moment, Qinming stepped forward. The time had come to unleash his full power and vent the pent-up rage that had festered within him. To him, if he did not kill this villain, he felt his Dao heart would remain clouded and his will obstructed. The humiliations he had suffered over the past 4 years needed an outlet. The young man took a deep breath, acutely aware of his own dire situation. He spoke, Lumo, you're choosing to stay out of this, aren't you? Aren't you worried I'll beat him to death? He understood that his own doom was sealed today. But if he could drag Qinming, who had borrowed this body to return from the dead, down with him, he could at least vent some of his own frustration. Qinming retorted, you, a rat who lives in the dark corners, surviving by stealing the life essence of other prodigies from behind their gates. You can't even stand the light, yet you dare speak to me like this. Presumptuous. The young man roared. Qinming's words had struck a nerve. Memories of the past surfaced in the mind of Wu Yao's future self, and his expression turned incredibly grim. There were truths he could not deny. If he hadn't pried open the gate and drained the primordial essence of others' lives, he would never have survived to this era. Qinming's killing intent surged as he spat, presumptuous. Presumptuous, my ass. The young man glanced at Lumo, and seeing that he had no intention of intervening, his malice flared. He lunged toward Qinming. You were nothing more than a blood cow I once kept in a pen. You don't even deserve to stand before me now. Since I could cripple you once, I can do it 1,000 times over. Today, I will slay you. The young man's killing intent boiled over. He was determined to drag the youngest great sage down to the grave with him. Qinming's voice turned cold. What are you barking about? You hunted me with the power of the 8th realm, yet you failed to kill me completely, allowing me to crawl back from hell. You've lived so much longer than I have, yet this is all you've achieved. Today, our cultivation is nearly equal. I'll blast you to pieces. The young man sneered, my past self reigned supreme over 2 lifetimes. I have no time to waste on you. Since our cultivation is now comparable, I will simply slay you. He transformed into a streak of light and charged forward, striking with lethal intent, desperate to finish the fight before Lumo could intervene. Swish. The white-haired Qinming vanished from his spot. The next instant, his true body emerged from another direction, ready to go all out. Qin had already sensed it. His opponent's physical body was in the 6th realm, and though his consciousness was still slightly flawed, he could barely be considered an ancestor-level figure. Qin himself had broken through 2 days ago and was currently at the Grandmaster 8th Heaven, meaning his cultivation was indeed comparable to this villain's. The young man's eyes, interlaced with Dao imprints, saw through his opponent's true state. His heart shook violently. The young great sage, whom he had drained dry as a blood pill, had actually fully recovered. For a moment, he couldn't calm down. This was truly an anomalous one, seemingly even more terrifying than beings with a gate within their bodies. After all, every being whose gate he had pried open had lost their life. Yet this Qin, whom he had crippled, had actually completely recovered. His voice turned low as he said, "Even if you've come back to life, I can kill you a second time." Kill. Qin roared. The most tragic moment since his birth had been caused by Wu Yao, and today, he would settle the score once and for all. A blade formed in the young man's hand, woven from runes. It wasn't a physical object, yet it was utterly terrifying, carrying a dense power of time. Without a doubt, this was the Time Blade, an ultimate technique that surely belonged to the Forbidden Domain. He intended to immediately slay the young anomalous one before him. Qin let out a soft snort, his spirit and body resonating as he unleashed his trump card in a single strike. Centered on him, a mysterious power expanded in the form of visible ripples, sweeping across the surroundings. Even against the Time Blade, it held its ground. This was the cry of the ancestor insect, a technique Qin had already mastered. And it was Wu Yao who had allowed him to fully comprehend it. 4 years ago, the golden figure had driven him to the brink of life and death, and in that moment, Qin had gained an epiphany of this technique. Now, returning from the abyss to the mortal world, he unleashed the cry of the ancestor insect against his future self. The heavens and earth underwent a drastic transformation as all living beings struggled to survive. Countless powerful figures withered away, much like ordinary insects facing the autumn frost, as the boundless leaves rustled and fell to the earth. The ancestor insect's despair stemmed from this, the inability to escape the iron law of the night mist world, that all things have a lifespan. It sought to transcend its fate by reaching the pinnacle of sublimation amidst decay. The cry of the ancestor insect was the full bloom of the spirit and body's resonance. The ripples spread, seemingly peaceful, yet they had once shattered the vast night sky, revealing the countless stars above, a truly magnificent finale. Now, Qin unleashed it, blocking the Time Blade. 2 ultimate techniques of the Forbidden Domain erupted in a brilliant display, clashing violently. Ripples layered upon ripples, in the gentlest of ways, drowned the terrifying Time Blade. They vibrated continuously, causing the blade's pristine surface to crackle. The time runes burned, and the divine blade fractured, on the verge of shattering. Of course, the afterglow of Qin cry of the ancestor insect was also fading, drawing to a close. Boom. The young man unleashed a punch. His pure yang power, the most rigid and strongest, was incomparably tyrannical, and it actually contained a multitude of sacred demonic essences. This made Qin gaze turn cold, and his face grow icy. Without a second thought, he knew the Xuanhuan's sacred demonic essence within the attack had been absorbed from his own body and refined by his opponent. Fortunately, he had taken the origin of the 10 sacred demonic essences with him. As long as the root of origin remained, he could channel the various sacred demonic essences from heaven and earth to continuously replenish them. Using my sacred demonic essence to fight a blood battle against me. You are unworthy. Qin chaos force erupted. The 10-colored sacred demonic essence shone brilliantly, like a 10-colored vast ocean breaking its banks, its raging waves crashing against the shore and its turbulent currents ravaging the night sky. The supremely rigid and pure yang powers of both sides boiled and clashed violently. The entire night was transformed into day, and light filled every corner. Though Qin cultivation realm was relatively lower, he now completely suppressed the young man. His chaos force, fused with the 10 sacred demonic essences, tore through the night veil, shaking both heaven and earth. Wu Yao's future self stumbled back several steps. Qin face turned icy as he pushed the silk book technique to its absolute limit. An even more violent torrent of heavenly light poured forth, and the 10 sacred demonic essences merged, causing the chaos force to undergo a qualitative change, becoming an unstoppable, crushing wave. Suddenly, the young man, whose back had been bent under the pressure, snapped straight. A divine light erupted from his eyes. Before him, the rampaging chaos force was completely drawn in and accepted. His eyes grew profound, and his hands opened like an abyss, revealing a black vortex spinning wildly, as if a sea eye had emerged. He was drawing in Qin heavenly light and sacred demonic essence, intending to devour them all. His voice was chillingly cold. You didn't think my ancestor's body would be inferior to yours, did you? The young man sought to seize Qin 10 sacred demonic essences' origin and drain him of his heavenly light essence. Suddenly, his expression changed. Whether it was the 10 sacred demonic essences or the vast heavenly light essence, they seemed rooted in the void, impossible to pull away, impossible to devour, and unshakable. His pupils constricted. He saw that Qin Ming's body, from head to toe, was covered in a dense network of black vortices, launching a reverse devour and tearing away his pure yang power. You've reached great accomplishment. He gasped in shock. How old was his opponent? How could he have cultivated the devouring force to such a level? Though he had mentally prepared himself, assuming Qin Ming had studied this technique for years and mastered it, he never expected him to reach a level comparable to his own. The devouring force was a legendary ultimate technique, hidden deep within the Silk Book. Even those who pored over the manual until it fell apart struggled to truly master it. Rumble. The clash between them was like two North Sea eyes colliding, each side furiously draining the other's power. The spectacle was utterly terrifying. Between Qin Ming and the young man, a pitch-black vortex consumed everything, drawing in all mystical substances. Bang! The young man was thrown backward. His pure yang power dimmed slightly, a portion of it having been siphoned away by his opponent. Li Wanfa. Qin Ming's voice was a low growl. The young man's face paled slightly as he retreated, his chest heaving as he gasped for air. Qin Ming was only in his 20s. How could his devouring force possibly rival his own? He found this hard to accept. In truth, he had been outmatched. He had just been counter-devoured, losing a significant amount of heavenly light essence. So it really is you. Qin Ming's voice was bone-chillingly cold. And what if it is? Li Wanfa replied. His soul light flared violently, and his face shifted, revealing a familiar countenance, Li Wanfa, a fellow disciple of the sage who also practiced chaos force. Qin Ming's gaze was as sharp as a blade, fixed intently on the man. In truth, he had long suspected the opponent's identity, this was merely confirmation. Many past events are now connected, leaving a clear trail of clues. Li Wanfa spoke, you don't think you're the only one who can cultivate three paths simultaneously, do you? When we were both in the Grandmaster realm, my chaos force was no weaker than yours. Qin Ming retorted coldly, you're an old monster who has eked out an existence for thousands of years. How dare you say such words? Lu Mo interjected, Wu Yao, are you really only inheriting the will of your young and strong self? Why are you pretending to be a novice now? How old are you, really? Even so, you're still no match for Xiao Qin and are being suppressed. Besides, your current cultivation realm is clearly higher, this is the ancestor's physical body. Then, old Lu burst into laughter. You've always been arrogant, considering yourself a peerless genius who looked down on your contemporaries. But when you truly met Qin Ming in the same realm, you were nothing more than this. The young man's expression remained impassive. He had indeed fallen into a disadvantage. Qin Ming didn't hold back his critique. Li Wanfa, your so-called three-path cultivation isn't harmonious at all. Its weaknesses are glaring. It's just a forced patchwork. You should still call me Wu Yao, the young man said in a low voice. The so-called Li Wanfa was merely the body he had borrowed after prying open the gate. The real Li Wanfa was already dead, this physical body now belonged to Wu Yao's future self. Inside the Dao domain, Shofeng Peak and Spiritual Lake were rapidly dimming. Lu Mo let out a soft burp and said, after a good meal, I'm not starving anymore. He looked at the two combatants in the Dao domain. Xiao Qin, hurry up and kill him. We still have to travel to Yuheng and Mo Yuan's Dao domains to attend their banquets. Wu Yao turned, his face darkening. Lu Mo, fine. You old bastard, you truly live up to your name. The other man had taken advantage of him and was now mocking him, leaving Wu Yao's future self feeling a lump of frustration in his chest. Lu Mo retorted, don't slander an innocent man. I'm a simple, honest native of Night Prefecture. Qin Ming fell silent, feeling more and more that old Lu's earlier sighs of despair were untrustworthy. With the character, Mo, Inc. in his name, the man was indeed a bit, blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 719, Mo and Ming Want to Laugh 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Given the typical conduct in Night Prefecture, how could he possibly claim to be simple and honest? Lu Hei Tu, Lu Black Earth. Wu Yao shouted coldly. Heavenly God Lu's expression stiffened. This crude, three-character name was clearly an attempt to tarnish his reputation. He rebuked him, have you never heard the saying, a man of ink is like jade, Lord Mo is as beautiful as jade. As one of his own, Qin Ming silently added a line of his own, a black-hearted soul, peerless in the world. The space between heaven and earth was filled with a murderous aura, as if all things were about to wither. This was a reflection of Wu Yao's state of mind, he knew his future self was destined to perish here. Even if he could kill Qin Ming, there was still Lu Mo beside him. How could there be any way to survive today? Boom. The blood qi within Qin Ming's body surged forth like a crimson dragon, erupting from his crown and tearing through the entire pitch-black night veil. Without even needing to stir his emotions, his killing intent was already boiling. It was time to settle this, and quickly. He needed to kill this villain as soon as possible, then go feast with old Lu somewhere else. Qinming used shrinking ground to an inch, instantly teleporting to his opponent's side. With an unprecedented 10-colored sacred demonic essence, he unleashed a punch that made the mountains and rivers lose their color. The addition of the Xuanhuan sacred demonic essence had brought a qualitative change to his chaos force. The blood qi he exuded, along with the heavenly light erupting from his flesh and blood, seemed to warp the void itself. Every gesture he made resonated with the heavens and earth, carrying a magnificent and overwhelming momentum. As his fist seal descended, the 10 directions trembled in unison. A nearby spiritual mountain rumbled violently, its entire mass shattered by the sheer force of his unity of heaven and man aura. Tiān, 10 directions, east, west, north, south, southeast, southwest, northeast, northwest, below, above. Wu Yao's gaze was as sharp as a sword's edge. With a low growl, he unleashed the heaven-mimicking earth-manifesting technique. His flesh and blood body instantly surged to tower between heaven and earth, his colossal palm covering mountains and rivers as he struck out at Qinming. The great earth beneath his feet cracked, and the heavenly clouds above were blasted clean away. Qinming's body simultaneously expanded. The two were like two resplendent ancient gods descending upon the mortal world. When they collided, the earth shook, and the mountains trembled. The light from their fists was like a blazing sun across the sky. In an instant, they exchanged dozens, even 100 blows. Wu Yao swung the long blade in his hand, and the void solidified. He once again unleashed the ultimate technique of the forbidden domain, the time blade. Now, standing boundless and towering between heaven and earth, his body piercing through the clouds, he appeared even more majestic and formidable. His gaze was like lightning cutting through the night. The might of this blade was enough to sever the very heavens and earth, leaving it the sole entity in the vast night. Suddenly, thunder roared from above the 9 heavens. Colossal spheres of lightning, like meteors from beyond the heavens, rained down in a dense barrage, each trailing a terrifying streak of light that pierced the night veil. Qinming activated the primordial myriad thunder seal. This was the power of the lightning runes, far more terrifying than the thunder seal techniques he had wielded in the past, to shatter the time blade of destruction. During his 4 years trapped in abyssal hell, deprived of the dense mystical substances needed for cultivation, he had instead immersed himself in the study of various scriptural meanings, pushing many mystical techniques to a higher domain. Since this was the final battle, Qinming was determined to end it. He would give it his all. The time blade, which spanned the heavens and earth, slashed through the sky, seemingly capable of annihilating all creation. Yet, under the endless barrage of lightning runes, its brilliance began to fade. Wu Yao's pupils constricted. Though he swung his blade and closed in on his opponent with blinding speed, he saw the time patterns entwined around the shimmering edge grow dim, and cracks began to spiderweb across the blade's body. Clang! Clang! Qinming mastered many mystical techniques, and his methods were far from singular. From between his 10 fingers, terrifying golden threads shot forth, each as sharp as an immortal sword descending from the heavens. Having met a formidable foe, Qinming showed him respect by directly unleashing the longevity force concealed within the silk book technique. The golden threads shone brilliantly, as sharp as knives and swords. Crackle. The moment the thunder shattered the time blade, Qinming's longevity force surged forward in a dense swarm, piercing toward Wu Yao's limbs and bones. There was no doubt that the mysterious family was held in high regard by the major supreme Dao lineages. The mystical techniques they mastered were naturally unrivaled in their respective domains. Qinming's longevity force pierced Wu Yao's shoulder, thigh, and abdomen in quick succession. Even his neck and face were now bleeding. Qinming manipulated the golden threads, attempting to tear him apart. Wu Yao's heart pounded with turmoil. He had also studied the silk book technique and successfully mastered it, knowing all too well that it concealed an unknown supreme true scripture. Though he had mastered the devouring force, he had always struggled to fully comprehend the longevity force, barely able to release a partial golden radiance, far from enough to use in a blood battle. He had always considered himself a heaven-defying genius. After all, both the devouring force and the longevity force were hidden within the silk book technique, with no original true scripture to guide the way. How could anyone hope to comprehend them easily? His past incarnation had spent centuries studying them. When he saw Qinming, a great sage in his 20s, consecutively unleashing ultimate techniques from the forbidden true scripture, his heart could not find peace. Puff! Qinming tore through his shoulder and slashed a foot-long bloody wound across his abdomen. In an instant, Wu Yao's body dimmed, transforming into a rain of light and vanishing from the spot. As powerful as he was, having dwelled in the world for countless years, he naturally mastered many mystical techniques. His body turned ethereal, becoming flying immortal light to prevent himself from being torn apart. He reappeared in the distant night veil, no longer maintaining his heaven-mimicking earth-manifesting form. A massive physical body was too large a target, making it easy for the opponent to lock on and unleash forbidden domain techniques. Wu Yao's long black hair flowed freely. Though his body was stained with blood, his eyes shone brighter and brighter. As his hands swept through the void, vast sword chi surged forth like a raging river, overwhelming the sky and earth as it crashed toward his opponent. With a series of thunderous booms, the nearby elegant peaks were all severed and pulverized into dust. One could only imagine the dangerous storm Qinming, at the center of the vast sword chi, was enduring. Swoosh. He formed a sword gesture with his fingers, and a similar sword chi soared into the sky. This sword light was divided into two colors, black and white, as distinct as a boundary. Qinming activated the black and white scripture and unleashed the yin-yang sword chi. He had been trapped in hell for 4 years, and only by comprehending the Tao and studying various mystical techniques could he endure the darkness and boredom of that time. The two combatants stood far apart, continuously unleashing terrifying sword light that seemed to completely plow through the heavens, scattering the sea of night mist above the 9 heavens. The heaven-piercing sword light banished the night, turning it into day. The terrifying sword intent did not touch the ground, yet it still generated a destructive force. The sword intent reached the profound, suppressing all directions. As the two types of sword intent clashed, they strangled all things from a distance. Within Wu Yao's great Tao domain, plants withered, majestic immortal mountains cracked, and all life perished. Then, all the sword chi suddenly vanished. However, the killing intent in the air grew even more intense. The brilliant sword light of the two did not manifest outwardly but was projected directly into their opponents' minds. The sword light shone within the light of the spirit, striking and slashing. They had cultivated the sword Tao to such a level that it was naturally enough to be called shocking to the world. Wu Yao's eyes were deep and unfathomable. His shock turned into a sigh. It was no surprise that he could wield such sword intent, but how could his opponent, a mere junior, also stand in this domain? According to earlier information, Qinming had not reached this level 4 years ago. Wu Yao frowned. The young man had not wasted his time. After his soul returning, Qinming's understanding of various secret techniques had clearly reached a new level. Could he have been replaced by another person? Wu Yao wondered suspiciously. But he quickly shook his head. That was impossible. Their bodies trembled violently, and their minds swayed incessantly. Within the spiritual domain, sword lights flashed one after another in a fierce exchange. When all the sword lights finally extinguished, a sense of exhaustion clouded both their eyes. This was the nature of a sword Tao battle within the psychic domain. A thunderous crash erupted. Wu Yao felt the spiritual domain suffer a massive earthquake, shaking violently. His pure yang consciousness was actually ripped from his physical body. Qinming had unleashed Meng Ziyu's ultimate technique, a top-tier forbidden domain technique of the dream insect clan that could pry a person's spirit from their body. Qinming had struck unexpectedly and caught him off guard. His first attempt was a success. Then, he raised his hand and unleashed the 5 heavenly thunders. Like the 5-colored divine light splitting the heavens, the primordial myriad thunder seal dazzled the eyes, directly striking Wu Yao with the 5 thunders strike. Then, the Tao imprint on Qinming's brow intertwined, and a vertical eye seemed to open, shooting out beams of terrible light. This was the eye of myriad laws, which could blend all laws. In an instant, the terrible beams of light, accompanied by thunderlight, pierced through the void. Wu Yao let out a muffled groan as his pure yang consciousness flared violently. Had anyone else faced such a sudden attack, they likely would have been instantly obliterated. But his techniques were profound. Within his pure yang consciousness, a Tao flower actually bloomed, blocking the attack for him. Not only that, but a brilliant flower bud also slowly unfolded within his physical body, protecting it. And in the void, a third flower bloomed even more radiantly, entwined with chaos force and blazing with unparalleled brilliance, blocking the thunder fire and the beams of the eye of myriad laws. Lumo watched in surprise and couldn't help but nod in approval. Wu Yao's cultivation of the 3 Tao flowers meant he had indeed made profound advancements on 3 different paths. At the critical moment, the 3 flowers bloomed, successfully helping him overcome the tribulation. As the 3 flowers swayed, a rain of light fell, guiding his pure yang consciousness to instantly return to his physical body. Qinming was stunned. Such a technique is truly extraordinary. After careful observation, he felt he could also perform it, as he cultivated all 3 paths and was incomparably harmonious, meeting the conditions for casting the technique. Having escaped the peril, Wu Yao's expression was grim. He had come dangerously close to a fatal disaster. To think that a blood cow I raised would cause such trouble for my future self. His eyes darkened, a suffocating pressure building in his chest. Generally speaking, Wu Yao's true body was accustomed to looking down on others from a position of absolute superiority. He had always held a psychological advantage over any challenger. Yet now, the tide of battle had turned against him. Swish! A streak of sword light flashed past his ear. Wu Yao dodged, his face turning solemn. He formed hand seals, instantly manifesting a great Tao treasure bottle in the void, aimed directly at Qinming. The bottle glowed with a brilliant radiance, its surface etched with intricate patterns. From its mouth, a mortal light erupted. In an instant, a dense web of spiritual chains shot out from the great Tao treasure bottle, sweeping toward his opponent. Suddenly, darkness engulfed the space before Qinming. He unleashed the devouring force, forming a massive black vortex that churned the heavens and earth. The vortex, resembling the eye of a storm, seemed poised to swallow the very sky as it blocked the terrifying spiritual chains. At the same time, Qinming summoned his inner vision heaven-opening axe. The axe's brilliant light illuminated the 9 heavens. As it swung across the sky, it seemed to possess the power to destroy all creation. Qinming's inner vision heaven-opening axe struck the great Tao treasure bottle. In an instant, the void erupted in blinding brilliance. The axe's light swept across heaven and earth, turning night into day. Amidst a spray of Tao imprints and sparks, the colossal axe and the great Tao treasure bottle clashed repeatedly. Finally, the treasure bottle shattered with a sharp crack. Shink. The axe's light sliced through, sending blood splattering from Wu Yao's shoulder. One of his arms was nearly severed, left hanging by a mere strip of skin. At the critical moment, he activated a healing secret technique. Blazing divine light wove through his flesh and blood, pulling the severed arm back into place and reattaching it. At this point, words were useless. The two had no choice but to fight to the death to eliminate their opponent. Qinming realized that Li Wanfa had truly kept an incredibly low profile in the past. He didn't know if the original body had been possessed by an 8-realm being after mastering the chaos force, or if it had been hunted by Wu Yao from the very beginning. The young man before him was displaying truly astonishing techniques. Wu Yao's expression remained impassive as he drew a large bow and a crude quiver containing several dull feathered arrows. He drew the bow, nocked an arrow, and aimed it directly at Qinming. Lu Mo's heart leapt. He was on the verge of stepping in to intervene personally. The 7 arrows of the Big Dipper. A replica. Only after confirming it was not that legendary, devastating weapon did he breathe a slight sigh of relief. Even so, he remained vigilant. This set of weapons was definitely not simple. Lu Mo furrowed his brows, sensing that this bow and arrow set posed a threat even to some beings in the Ancestral Realm. Qinming remained undaunted, secretly activating the space within the old Bu space. Wu Yao fired arrow after arrow, sending several streaks of rainbow light soaring toward his opponent. Tianshuan, Yuheng, Kaiyang, Yaoguang. The 7 arrows were actually drawing upon the Tao resonance of heaven and earth, continuously building momentum. They resembled 7 great stars revolving thunderously, carrying a grand, world-shaking aura that engulfed Qinming. The Tao resonance surged like an ocean, a terrifying and soul-shaking spectacle. Yet, the 7 arrows vanished mysteriously before Qinming. What was meant to be a devastating attack had now become a mere flash in the pan, broken by Qinming in less than a breath's time. The primordial gold bridge materialized beneath his feet, spanning the distance to the other shore. In an instant, he appeared not far from Wu Yao. Qinming let out a low roar, unleashing the cry of the ancestor insect. Ripples expanded, reaching far and wide, sweeping across the entire battlefield. This was a forbidden domain technique best suited for group battles, using it against a single opponent seemed somewhat wasteful. At the same time, Qinming erupted with chaos force, striking forward with his left fist and right palm. The attack merged the 10-colored sacred demonic essence, making its destructive power truly terrifying. Lightning and thunder crackled around his body as the primordial myriad thunder seal formed a dense, interwoven web. Wu Yao's expression shifted, and he unleashed various secret techniques to counter the attack. In the sky, divine light burned, and Tao resonance surged, creating a destructive storm filled with immortal seals and thunder fire. With a deafening boom, Wu Yao was sent flying. In this fierce blood battle, half of his body had been blown apart, and a vast amount of blood mist billowed into the air. He drew upon the blood mist, forcing it to flow backward to reconstruct his body. Then, he shattered a red-skinned gourd, releasing a swirling cloud of smoke and fire that swept toward Qinming. The smoke and mist of the mortal realm can erode the Tao bone, Lu Mo warned. This was no ordinary smoke. It was a terrifying substance refined by powerful cultivators from the mortal realm, capable of polluting one's Tao heart and leaving it covered in dust. I hail from the turbid world. Why should I fear the mortal realm's aura? Within Qinming's pure yang consciousness, a green lotus soared out and took root amidst the mysterious smoke and fire. It began to drink greedily, absorbing every last drop. The turbid world green lotus swayed as it drew nourishment, growing stronger by the moment. Suddenly, it shot forward again. Its roots spread out like tentacles, piercing toward Wu Yao's physical body to erode his spiritual domain. With a loud thud, a mortal light erupted from Wu Yao's body, yet blood still splattered. His flesh was torn by the turbid world green lotus, and a fragment of his conscious spiritual light was ripped out and crushed by the lotus. Wu Yao's eyes turned frigid. He found it hard to accept his defeat at the hands of a newcomer. His body began to glow, awakening like a resuscitated divine being. His right hand clenched, then slowly unfurled, shedding stardust from his fingertips. At first, the grains of stardust fell one by one, tiny and crystalline. But then, the scene transformed completely. A thunderous roar erupted as the stardust expanded, coalescing into a vast sea of stars. Qin Ming's pupils constricted. He swiftly unleashed his chaos force, piercing through the sea of stars. However, he failed to destroy the celestial bodies. He soon learned the nature of this mystical technique, a technique designed to strike directly at the mind. Colossal stars materialized within his consciousness, rotating and burning with a relentless fury, threatening to shatter his spiritual domain. Within Qin Ming's consciousness, the turbid world Green Lotus appeared. With a gentle sway, it shattered the entire sea of stars. Immediately after, golden threads wove together as he unleashed his longevity force. He pierced the remaining stars one by one, tearing them into fine dust. In the distance, Wuxiao let out a muffled groan. Pale golden blood trickled from the corner of his mouth, not merely the blood of the body, but the blood of the spirit. He had been struck by the backlash. You certainly have plenty of tricks up your sleeve, Qin Ming sneered, his killing intent palpable. But what can you do against me? It's time to end this. A green lamp blended with myriad techniques hovered at his shoulder, burning through the night sky. Pages of scripture fluttered from its wick. Above his head, thousands of layers of thunder and fire rumbled and roared. Between his hands, a black hole swirled, threatening to devour all creation. Golden threads wove across his body, his longevity force poised to strike. And behind him, the inner vision heaven opening axe slowly rose. Furthermore, his physical form was covered in endless mysterious patterns, a result of the body refinement Tao harmonization scripture. In this instant, Qin Ming unleashed all his techniques in a relentless barrage against Wuxiao. PFF'd. Wuxiao was covered in cracks, blood streaming from his body. His soul light was blasted out multiple times, and his spiritual domain grew dim and lifeless. In this brutal clash, both combatants had exhausted every technique at their disposal. Qin Ming sighed inwardly. This old demon was truly formidable after borrowing the gate's physical body, anyone else would have struggled to defeat him. Wuxiao had always been meticulous about his future self. For all these years, he had never rushed his breakthroughs, ensuring each step was taken with absolute stability and polished to the state of perfection. He had nourished his body and spirit with countless heavenly materials and earthly treasures, leaving them flawless. Yet, even so, he had been defeated by a young newcomer. Shik. Qin Ming pierced his opponent with longevity force. Strands of golden thread, like long divine spears, pinned Wuxiao to the void. Suddenly, Qin Ming gave a violent tug. With a thunderous boom, Wuyao's body and spirit were torn asunder, blood spraying everywhere. Wuyao's background was formidable, and he possessed various heaven-defying techniques. He first dissolved into a rain of light to escape his predicament, then reformed his body in the distance. Qin Ming, however, was surging with murderous intent. Treading upon the primordial golden bridge, he arrived in an instant. A single punch sent a shockwave through heaven and earth, obliterating Wuyao's form. Wuxiao let out a roar of agony as he materialized once more in the distance. Unable to escape his own domain, he found himself trapped and facing another all-out, devastating attack from Qin Ming. His body exploded over and over again, blood spraying everywhere, and his pure yang consciousness shattered time and again. Qin Ming felt he had finally vented his pent-up rage. Afterward, he dared not deliver a truly lethal blow, fearing he might annihilate Wuyao's physical form. He seized Wuxiao by the neck, hoisting him into the air and imprisoning him with his own spiritual domain. Then, transforming his left hand into a black hole and pressing it against Wuyao's chest, he began to ravenously drain away his life force. My own primordial essence Qi is actually leaping with joy. Though it had merged into his body, it returns to me like an old swallow returning to its nest with the slightest guidance. Even in this desperate state, Wuxiao managed to unleash a forbidden secret technique, a technique long since solidified within his body, released by instinct alone. His blood qi burned, his spiritual domain seethed, and he unleashed the past seal, the present seal, and the future seal, attempting to freeze time and space with the three seals to decide Qin Ming's fate. However, Qin Ming suddenly exerted his full strength, tearing through the frozen canvas of the void. The shockwave caused Wuyao's form to disintegrate once more, and the so-called three seals shattered instantly. Using a devouring force, Qin Ming frantically reabsorbed the life essence that was rightfully his. His physical body brimmed with vibrant vitality, and the earlier feeling of depletion and discomfort vanished completely. He felt his form and spirit reaching a state of perfection, growing stronger and more resilient by the moment. Old Lu, can you perform soul searching? Qin Ming asked. Wuxiao was an ancient monster. His pure yang consciousness was more valuable than his physical body. I'm afraid it will be very difficult, Lu Mo shook his head. He was also an 8th realm expert and understood that beings at this level could fight to the death, but would never allow outsiders to step into their soul domain. The spiritual domain contained complex restrictions that would self-destruct upon contact. Xuanhuan, time to eat. Qinming released the yellow canopy umbrella from the old cloth. However, the moment it appeared, instead of going to restrain the soul light, it tried to fight Qinming. You actually imprisoned me for over 4 years. I'll fight you to the death. Qinming said, Xuanhuan, let me explain. Do you know how I've lived these past 4 years? Struggling alone to survive at the end of hell, where you can't even see your own hand in the darkness. The yellow canopy umbrella grew even angrier, thinking Qinming was making a sarcastic jab at her. After all, for the past 4 years, she had truly been imprisoned in the dark. I'm not lying to you. I went through a death tribulation and almost died. Otherwise, how could I have lost contact with you? Qinming soothed her, finally managing to calm her down. Wu Yao closed his eyes, his face a deathly gray. To be defeated and brutally suppressed by a junior almost drove him to a state of complete withdrawal. I never imagined my future self would be destroyed by some junior in Night Prefecture. He was filled with regret and endless bitterness. This incident had too much impact. His past self was already gradually decaying. Now that his future was severed, where could he find another body with a gate in such a short time? Besides, he could no longer break into a gate to take shelter, as he had already exhausted his 2 or 3 opportunities within the safe zone. Lumo rubbed salt in the wound, taunting, why did you have to provoke the simple and honest people of Night Prefecture? Hearing this, Wu Yao felt so stifled he wanted to explode on the spot, wishing he could curse old Lu. Who didn't know the so-called character of Night Prefecture? If Wu Yao were to give his assessment, he'd say Night Prefecture was a rather eerie place. Even evildoers from the outside world would feel a sense of unease if they ventured too deep. If they stayed for a long time, they would start feeling their hair stand on end. This was completely absurd, even the villains felt Night Prefecture was unsafe. His past self won't sense anything, will it? Qinming asked. Lumo shook his head. No, I've severed the karmic ties and obscured the heavenly secret. He rolled up the Dao domain, then soared away, heading to the next location to continue, crashing the feast. Lumo reminded him, imprison Wu Yao's future self first. Since you're also walking the esoteric path, absorbing the various mystical substances and Dao resonance from this Dao domain will yield many benefits. Lumo had already set his sights on the Dao domains of Yuheng and Mo Yuan. In fact, the top secret information the two had received had actually been arranged by old Lu himself. Thus, the journey had been incredibly smooth. Heavenly God Lu and Qinming had completely uprooted the Dao domains of the 2 decayed heavenly immortals. Time is short. We'll digest all this later. Both felt the trip had been well worth it and were highly satisfied. What expressions would Wu Yao's past self, Yuheng, and Mo Yuan have if they knew the truth? Gazing into the night, Qinming felt a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Lumo spoke, the curtain is slowly rising, it is time to return. Any delay, and I might miss the spectacular show. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 720, The Eighth Realm Fugitives Are All Left Baffled, 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Lumo glanced back one last time at the now completely barren Dao domain, stripped of every blade of grass. He felt a genuine sense of gratitude for the contributions of the 2 decayed heavenly immortals, Yuheng and Mo Yuan. Old brothers, words cannot express my gratitude for such a great favor. Farewell. Heavenly God Lu, having seized all the creation opportunities, soared into the sky and formally began his journey home. One could imagine that, not long ago, Yuheng and Mo Yuan had been smugly pleased with themselves, secretly rejoicing over their access to exclusive information. Yet, in the Night Province, there are no true secrets, only, good brothers, keeping a close eye on you. After a brief moment of reflection, Qinming withdrew his gaze. He was extremely satisfied with this trip. Once he reclaimed his primordial essence qi, he was certain to undergo a complete transformation, a true awakening. Heavenly God Lu traveled at top speed, tearing through the sea of night mist and plowing through the night veil. Along the way, he wasted no time, greedily devouring the spiritual veins and Dao resonance of the heavenly immortal Dao domain. His face glowed with a radiant red hue. How could a heavenly immortal's residence be mere mortal land? The shimmering lakes were formed from spiritual qi condensed into liquid. The elegant peaks and immortal valleys all steamed with mystical substances. Even the bare cliffs were considered wondrous objects, containing the 5-colored divine light within. Qinming took the advice to heart. He activated the esoteric path scriptures and sat cross-legged within the heavenly immortal Dao domain. After taking root there, he resonated with the heaven and earth, contemplating his path to divinity. Lu Mo, in high spirits, stood atop the sheer cliff, his feather robe fluttering in the wind. He looked like a sage who had already attained the Dao. My Dao is incomplete. Only diligence can mend it. With that, he opened his mouth and began to inhale and drink greedily once more. The sight left Qinming speechless, feeling as though a scene from the past was playing out all over again. Back then, while Qinming was dueling high in the firmament, old Lu would lead his dog to raid the private gardens of various earth immortals. After the man and his dog had harvested miracle medicines, they refused to leave, even borrowing furnaces in others' alchemy rooms to refine pills. Of course, Lumo wasn't the only perpetrator at that time. Sages, other earth immortals, and ancestors were also involved. They weren't a gang, but their motives and actions were highly consistent. As Night Prefecture came into view, Lumo slowed his pace, signaling to Qinming that it was time to cease their cultivation. Then, he completely withdrew the heavenly immortal Dao domain. The two returned silently, without causing a single ripple. Qinming remarked, "Old man, you even fooled me, I wasted all that worry on you." Lumo replied, "It is simply a habit born of my cultivation. Make the void appear real, and the real appear void, yin and yang, truth and illusion, they can all be interchanged." He then added, "Besides, I haven't escaped the crisis yet. The disaster of bloody calamity remains, I am still in the process of crossing my tribulation." The black and white mountain was engulfed in churning mist as blood-red lightning tore through the sky. The atmosphere was suffocatingly oppressive, punctuated by the incessant roar of heavenly thunder. Though the 8 realm beings had long since retreated deep into the sea of mist, leaving the mortal world behind, strange phenomena still erupted on the mountain slopes from time to time. Black clouds pressed down to the earth, plunging the area into a darkness so thick one couldn't see their own hand before their face. The tension was palpable, enough to stifle the breath. Meng Xinghai was the first to emerge from Kaisha City, intent on rushing to Twin Tree Village on the outskirts of Black and White Mountain. However, he was stopped. The dog sword immortal personally blocked the path, refusing to let anyone through. He offered only a single word: danger. Grandmaster Yu Zhensheng also arrived, his face ashen. Upon hearing that Qinming had appeared, he found himself unable to remain seated. In this era, it was unwise for him to travel, and his condition was far from stable. Qinming has appeared in Twin Tree Village, his hair white as snow. What on earth has he been through these past 5 years? Fourth Princess Yao Ruoxian of Great Yu, who maintained close ties with Black and White Mountain, was among the first to arrive. When Duke Pei Shuyan, received the news, he found it hard to believe. Qinming had aged prematurely. What? Qinming is still alive. At the edge of Night Prefecture, old Taoist Guanxu of Tushita Palace nearly tore out a handful of his own beard upon receiving the secret report. He found it inconceivable. How could that young great sage have survived after falling into the hands of an 8-realm being? Senior brother, come with me. Let's take a look. Guanxu awakened the old Taoist who was meditating nearby. Months ago, Guanxu had been gravely injured by the silver eyeball, nearly falling into a state of deathly stillness. As he recovered, the more he thought about it, the angrier he became. The more he pondered, the more his Tao heart grew clouded and restless, driving him to seek out reinforcements. Guan Chen was a peerless expert, he had personally requested from the inverted Tushita Palace, an ancient monster not to be deployed lightly. The two old Taoists transformed into 2 streaks of lightning, piercing through the sea of night mist and arriving at Black White Mountain in an instant. A natural calamity has struck ahead. All travelers, halt. The dog sword immortal, clad in a straw raincoat and bamboo hat with a green bamboo sword strapped to his back, soared into the sky. He descended upon the clouds, intending to block their path. But in a flash, a chill ran down his spine. His body stiffened, and he immediately transformed into an adorable panda, flashing a smile. 2 great sages have descended. In that case, there's no problem at all. He backed away decisively, clearing the path. What is happening? There is a great battle in this mountain, and it even involves an 8th realm being. The 2 old Taoists looked down at Black White Mountain with grave expressions. Do you know what's going on? Guanxu asked the dog sword immortal. An evil spirit is attacking, seeking to kill an 8th realm nirvana stage cultivator, the dog sword immortal replied. The 2 old Taoists descended, cautiously entering the sea of mist. The golden figure has appeared. That must be the culprit I've been hunting. Guanxu had come to Night Prefecture primarily to capture the criminal. He had been without a lead for so long, yet today he had actually stumbled upon his target. And that silver eyeball, he's here too. Senior brother, that monster nearly took my life. Without a moment's hesitation, the 2 old Taoists charged forward. Lumo and Qinming descended gracefully, landing beneath the black and white twin trees. Lumo's expression was grim. In the sea of mist deep within Black and White Mountain, the battle raged more fiercely than ever. Outside, the great Tao flowers were withering, their dried petals drifting through the void. Moreover, the roar of a tsunami erupted from time to time, as if it were about to sweep into the mortal world. The phenomenon of Earth's cry had actually occurred. The mountains and rivers resonated, and earthlight steamed, mixing with mottled blood fiend as it fluttered and spread between heaven and earth. Before the black and white twin trees, Lumo coughed, blood staining the corner of his mouth. Qinming was instantly shocked. What's wrong? The raid on the enemy stronghold was so easy, yet Heavenly God Lu was injured after returning. Lumo wiped the blood from his mouth and said, the battle inside is too fierce. I shifted between my real and illusory forms to sense the situation within. The blood battle is utterly terrifying. Your body of a heavenly god in its giant beast form is still inside, as is your divine embryo. Why didn't you escape? Wouldn't it be better to let the golden cicada shed its shell? Lumo shook his head and said, I've told you, the tribulation of an eight-realm being simply cannot be avoided. Whether it stems from man-made calamity or the obstruction of heaven itself, this hurdle must be crossed sooner or later. Otherwise, leaving it for the future would be even more terrible. This time, it's a rare opportunity, unfolding exactly as I wished. I absolutely cannot miss this golden chance. Without a doubt, the battlefield inside must have already been drenched in blood. Old Lu had not withdrawn from the fight, his body of a heavenly god was still inside, fighting a frontal battle to cross the tribulation. Of course, he was also going with the flow, forming alliances and using his own body as medicine to draw his opponents into a chaotic blood battle. Boom. A massive Vajra ring vaguely materialized in the night sky, a phantom projection from the sea of mist into the mortal world. It was terrifyingly huge, filling the entire heavens. The people from Tushita Palace are here too. Qinming was stunned. Lumo nodded. Yes, 2 experts have arrived. Cough. He coughed up another mouthful of blood. Qinming looked at him, his worry deepening. Lumo said grimly, all kinds of ghosts and gods have shown up. Even a wanted criminal appeared, and he nearly succeeded in ambushing me. Indeed, variables could arise at any time. This being, ranked 5th on the Jade Capital Most Wanted list, was rumored to have departed for the depths of the Night Mist world 500 years ago. This being was not on Old Lu's list, yet it had appeared so abruptly today, nearly shattering his body of a heavenly god. Thud. Lumo's body convulsed again, and this time he coughed up 3 large mouthfuls of blood. He said in a low voice, the 8-realm killing formation I set up has been broken. Just moments ago, he had nearly met his end. The body of a heavenly god in the Sea of Mist had disintegrated, and only after paying a heavy price had he managed to recover. Hiss. My divine embryo was almost snatched away. Lumo shot into the air, unable to remain seated. His face was ghastly. In an instant, he transformed into Lu Bai's appearance, taking on the form of a young man. By borrowing this yin-yang transformation, he weathered a tribulation. Soon, he switched back, returning to his old, withered form. He slowly descended to the ground, murmuring to himself, the 78th tribulation has arrived, the end is finally near. Qinming asked, how many tribulations must you endure? Lumo replied, I suspect it's the 81 tribulations, which aligns with the perfection tribulation described in ancient texts. It's almost here. Qinming remained silent. Was this confidence, or mere wishful thinking? Boom. Within Black White Mountain, a colossal Vajra ring clashed with a massive azure demonic body, nearly stepping into the mortal world. Then, the heavens burned as if endless meteorites were raining down, creating terrifyingly magnificent scenes that shook the soul. At the same time, Lumo's body convulsed violently, and he was sent flying backward, blood streaming from his 7 orifices. Qinming rushed forward to support him. I was just ambushed by Yu Heng, Mo Yuan, and that wanted fugitive, the number 5 entity, all at once. I've been severely injured, Lumo sighed. Thinking of how he had just raided the nests of 2 decayed heavenly immortals, he felt a slight sense of relief. But the thought of being ambushed by creature number 5 still filled him with resentment. His expression turned grave. I have already weathered 79 tribulations, and the pace is quickening. The final tribulation will likely be the one that claims my life. How will you deal with it? Qinming asked. Lumo replied, I will use Wu Yao's future body to withstand the tribulation. He led Qinming underground, into a small world isolated by the massive root system of the black and white tree. Heavenly God Lu personally extracted a bloody mass of substance from Wu Yao's future body and said, this is the area where the mysterious gate is located. He severed a section of root from the black and white tree, refined it into the shape of his own divine embryo, and then struck Wu Yao's bloody gate into it, completing the fusion almost instantly. Qinming asked, aren't you tempted? The substance inside the gate can extend one's lifespan. Lumo nodded honestly and spoke with a serious, solemn tone. The temptation is indeed great, but I am also afraid. I fear that if I absorb it today, I will completely lose control in the future, unable to restrain myself, and become an enemy of the entire world. Furthermore, I once read the manuals of my predecessors, which warned later cultivators that those who pry open the gate will surely face retribution, paying it back in the most horrific manner possible. What manner? Qinming asked curiously. Old Lu said, an incomparably terrifying monster will come knocking at the gate. If you refuse to open it, they will simply pry it open. Alas, I do not know the specifics beyond that. According to his words, if the golden figure and the others did not die on their journey, they would one day also face their tribulation and meet the same fate, dying by having their gates pried open. Lu Mo finished his refinement, and a lifelike Lu Bai appeared. At the critical moment, I will send this body to all of them. If they tear it apart, the mysterious substance within will simply dissipate, returning to the world. For the final tribulation, old Lu planned to use Wu Yao as a scapegoat. Of course, he preserved the physical body, as it still contained Qin Ming's primordial essence. Qin Ming discovered that the yellow canopy umbrella had not completely absorbed Wu Yao's soul light. At that moment, he resonated with a faint ripple of emotion. Lu Mo also detected the dormant remnant soul and yanked it out directly. Still trying to seize a body to return to life. Absolutely impossible, old Lu said coldly. Wu Yao sighed. Who was he? A former 8th realm expert who had once dominated the world, living through countless ages. Now, if his future self had to face the tribulation, his past self would likely wither away. To think I'd meet my end like this. I am truly unreconciled. Hearing this, Qin Ming slapped him twice, one on each cheek, ensuring the swelling was perfectly symmetrical. A hunter who lived in the gutters. What's there for you to lament? You make it sound like a hero's fall. Dying like this is far too good for you. Xiao Huang, take your time refining his soul. Don't rush. Qin Ming commanded the yellow canopy umbrella to attend to the man properly. His pity was reserved for Li Wanfa's original body, which had been strangled to death by Wu Yao. Wu Yao, still unwilling to accept his fate, looked at heavenly god Lu and said, this was originally your tribulation. Who would have thought I would be the one to endure it in the end? Lu Mo's expression turned solemn. Who in this world isn't trapped in a tribulation? We are all just pitiful creatures suffering through it. Qin Ming stared at Wu Yao. Night Prefecture cannot endure the havoc wreaked by ancient monsters. Creatures like you all deserve to be exterminated. First there was the silver eyeball, then Wu Yao. They had forced Lu Zizai to flee to a distant land and left Qin Ming languishing in hell for over 4 years. Lu Mo sighed. Night Prefecture does indeed possess a demonic nature. Even amidst constant warfare, this land occasionally spawns 1 or 2 monstrous geniuses. Even at its lowest ebb, Night Prefecture never completely descended into mediocrity. No wonder some outsiders slander it, calling it the demon province. Boom. The terrifying heavenly thunder detonated within Lu Mo's body. He instantly dissolved into black and white qi, his form shattering and disintegrating on the spot. After a moment, the yin-yang qi coalesced into the black-white diagram before reforming into old Lu's figure. His body was covered in cracks, and crimson blood trickled from his 7 orifices. I just exploded 4 times in a row, he said grimly. That's the 80th tribulation. Just one final push to go. In an instant, he sacrificed the substitute body he had personally refined. The roots of the black and white tree merged with the gate gestated by Wu Yao's future body, and they vanished from this place. Lu Mo and Qin Ming returned to the surface, standing at the village entrance and gazing at the great mountain ahead. At this moment, in the deepest part of Black and White Mountain, a place not of the mortal world, upon the sea of mist, a colossal silver eyeball descended, burning like a true celestial body. Its once pitch-black figure transformed into a cyan demonic body, condensing into real flesh and blood. He dared to withstand the multiple manifestations of the Vajra ring head-on. The stars burned, falling from beyond the heavens. 8 realm beings unleashed forbidden domain techniques, striking the sea of mist with world-destroying force. The sea shattered repeatedly, its terrifying energy and horrific spectacle nearly overflowing into the mortal world. Xiao Qin, what has happened to you? Why have you kept me uneasy for years? Yu Zhensheng stood beside Meng Xinghai, his face etched with worry. Members of the Kui family had also arrived, rushing without pause. As they gazed at the miraculous scene on Black and White Mountain, they sought to understand Qin Ming's current condition. In addition to the natives of Night Prefecture, heavenly beings were present. The ancient factions from above the 9 heavens had established branches within the Great Yu Earth Immortal Dynasty, allowing their stationed personnel to arrive immediately. Is Black and White Mountain suffering a natural disaster, or is it nurturing a great opportunity? Many watched from afar, their hearts filled with unrest. Some of our great families in heaven even extended olive branches to Qin Ming back then, even hoping to take him in as a son-in-law. Fortunately, they failed. It seems they dodged a calamity. 5 years have passed, and now we hear he has already grown white-haired, withering before his time. It's said Qin Ming declined the proposal of a daughter from the Huang family's branch line, so the matter was dropped. Who doesn't know that the Huang family's eldest daughter is like the bright moon hanging high in the heavens? How could she be easily attained? Over the past 5 years, Qin Ming had gradually faded from public notice. Now that he had reappeared, he seemed to be in trouble. In the eyes of some heavenly beings, he was descending into mediocrity. Rumble. Deep within Black and White Mountain, a colossal giant beast revealed eyes like the stars and moon. Its body of a heavenly god had disintegrated multiple times, leaving it covered in blood. The terrifying silver eyeballs, like a heavenly sun cutting across the night veil, and its monstrously powerful battle body were about to enter the mortal world. Wu Yao, Yu Heng, and the other fugitives, along with the 2 old Taoists from Tushita Palace, all unleashed their true fire. Damn it, it really is a death tribulation. Lu Mo's voice was ice cold. In the next instant, he summoned his divine embryo, Lu Bai, who appeared beneath the black and white tree at the village entrance. Simultaneously, from the depths of the sea of mist, one giant hand after another struck out, shattering Lu Mo's giant beast form body of a heavenly god and sending it flying. Then, they froze time and space. One giant hand after another reached out to seize Lu Bai. PFF'd. The divine embryo was torn apart. Each of them grabbed a piece of the bloody remains. Suddenly, a dense, mysterious substance exploded outward. Ah! No! Wu Yao's past self shrieked in agony. He understood what had happened. Lu Mo, I will never rest until you are dead. He screamed, driven mad. Beneath the black and white tree, Lu Mo's body convulsed violently before he expelled a breath of turbid air. The 81 tribulations. They aligned perfectly with the ancient texts, he murmured. Truly terrifying, an ordeal of unimaginable hardship, but I have finally achieved perfection. He then threw his head back and roared to the heavens. A torrent of dazzling immortal light erupted from his mouth, tearing through the pitch-black sky. The threshold of life and death at 84, I have finally crossed it. Now that my tribulation crossing is complete, it's your turn to make your move. Above the night veil, a terrifying Tao resonance surged. Myriad golden radiance and tens of millions of divine light descended. Great banners fluttered in the wind as killing formation after killing formation enveloped black-white mountain. The new ranking, golden ranking, and Tao ranking manifested simultaneously, descending upon the land. Furthermore, a colossal inverted city seemed to be breaching the mortal world, threatening to crush the earth below. The night sky teemed with figures, their presence radiating murderous intent. In the sea of mist, the 8 realm beings locked in combat all changed expression. The Jade Capital is here to hunt criminals. It's you, Lu Mo. How dare you? Mo Yuan, Yu Heng, and number 5 all wore expressions as grim as stagnant water. They were all fugitives, yet Lu Mo dared to summon the Jade Capital's forces, even if it meant self-destructing. At this moment, Lu Mo's lips also twitched. He saw the heaven-stabilizing divine pillars rising around them, and faintly glimpsed a group of old bastards acting in the shadows. Without a doubt, if he died today, this bunch of old bones would follow him to the feast. Wu Yao's voice was grave. The ancient monster in the Jade Capital, who wanted to study Lu Mo back then, is running out of time. Have they reached an agreement? Yu Heng was furious. He had received top-secret information that the ancient monster was likely searching for Lu Mo. How could things have taken such a sudden turn? Wu Yao speculated that since the ancient monster had only a few years left to live, the powerhouses of the Jade Capital, who were already tasked with restoring the heavenly order, would naturally extend an olive branch to Lu Mo. One was a decaying old man, another was a man who had been flayed and had his bones picked clean, only to retrace his steps, undergo the great nirvana at Black White Mountain, and successfully live a completely new life. The Jade Capital's upper echelons had already made their choice. Reporting a wanted fugitive should come with a generous reward, right? Hand it over. Lu Mo reached out toward the night sky. In the sea of mist, the silver eyeball, Wu Yao, number 5, Yu Heng, and the others were left utterly bewildered. This bastard had not only made peace with the Jade Capital but had also sold them out for a good price. Qin Ming looked at heavenly god Lu and couldn't help but sigh. Lord Mo, as beautiful as Jade, peerless in his dark form. Without thinking, he had spoken the second half of the line he had only intended to say in his mind. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel.